For one being a representing a man for Uptown TV. You understand?
Fega di besema indionech. Endi hu bemedir tihun. Yala tenterachnen sitenzare. Bedelachnem ikker belen. Igna je bedelnen ikkeren demenil. Awada fet na matagban. Kakifu adenenen fi. Mengist yante antenantena. Heilige Maskan Lisleale.
In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa, we ask these ancestors to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa and marched down the Nile, laying the foundations for human civilization and culture, we ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of these African ancestors who built their pyramids and their temples to their God concepts, to their principles, and to their moral values, who left us a legacy of architectural and monumental building unparalleled in the history of the world, we ask these ancestors who built the pyramids, who built the temples, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these African ancestors who took this African culture and extended it throughout Africa, building the stone cities of Zimbabwe, building the empires of the Sudan, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, building the Swahili city-states along the east coast of Africa, and in Christian Africa, asking King Lalibela and giving him the courage to build the 12 churches of Lalibela from the ground down, monuments to the world. We ask these Africans who spread this culture to the Dogo and to the Akan and to the Yoruba and to the Bankango and to the Zulu. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the Africans who opened up Africa, opened up the Nile Valley to other cultures and other peoples, and they came in and nurtured themselves on the African greatness. First coming in early with the ancient Hebrews, and they synthesized this culture and produced Judaism. Later coming in were the Christians, and they synthesized this culture and produced Christianity. Coming in were also the Greeks, who took the African culture, synthesized it, and produced Greek civilization. And then later, the Prophet Muhammad, and with the Arabs coming into the Nile Valley, they synthesized the culture and produced Islam. We ask these African ancestors, who as part of their legacy laid the foundations for Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Greek civilization, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask those African ancestors pulled out of Africa, taken to the hells of North America, South America, the Caribbean, maintaining the spirit of African humanity in their hearts and in their minds, and who left us this enormous legacy of struggle. We ask those Africans who resisted enslavement in the villages of Africa, who resisted enslavement in the shores of Africa, who resisted enslavement in those forts and dungeons, who resisted enslavement in the holds of those ships, who resisted enslavement when they arrived on these shores in the New World. We ask these Africans who ran into the highlands of northeast Brazil and established for 100 years the first free republic in the Americas, the Republic of Palmares, and their last great leader, Zumbi, who speared and sacrificed. We asked these Africans who replicated the Brazilian experience and went into the highlands of Jamaica and became the maroon free communities. We asked these Africans who went into the backwoods of the Guyanas and Suriname and created free republic of the Suramaka and the Ajuka. We asked these Africans who went into the backwoods of Georgia and the swamps of Florida and moved with the Seminole Indians and resisted oppression. We ask these Africans who left us a legacy of struggle and resistance, the likes of which no one in the world has, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these Africans who created and laid for us a foundation of struggle and resistance that was passed on generation after generation, that was passed on to Harriet Tubman, who fought her way out of enslavement and became a symbol of freedom for all of us. Similarly, Frederick Douglass and hundreds of thousands of others fought their way out of enslavement. We asked those Africans who went with Boukman Dessalines to create the greatest revolutionary experience in the history of the world, the Haitian Revolution, leaving us a legacy, the likes of which no one else has had. We asked these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future.
Let us start our class with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Bhagavan Krishna, Mahavatar Babaji, Larry Mahashai, Swami Shri Yukteswarji, our Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, we bow to all of you. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, great Gurus, receive our love, receive our desire to love you more, to attune our hearts and minds with your great presence. Om. Peace.
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
As we're waking up this morning, we're hearing Donald Trump in what is not surprising, but still, wow. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? So, on the plane, Air Force One yesterday, he was being interviewed by journalists, and one of the things he said was that, and he's just throwing that out there to see how it sticks, and it's sticking with a lot of people. So one of the things he said was that the people of Palestine, 1.odd million of them, that he's asked Jordan and Egypt to take them. So while he's purging the United States of immigrants and whatnot, he's asking Egypt to take in 1.3 million and Jordan refugees, because he says he just wants to clean out that area. And if you recall, so he's speaking the quiet part out loud. But this is, and this has always been the plan, and that for a long time. It's Greater Israel, the whole thing. So this has always been the plan. From the days of Herzl through the fight with the Ottoman Empire until today. This has always been the plan. History is indeed our alibi. Some not so new. Artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, artificial super intelligence. Well, we're there now. Well, we've been telling you about technocracy for a long time because this is where we are. Technopopulism is what we see happening now. We hear Trump talking about the manifest destiny, so we're back to that. And of course, AI agents, AI arms race, mass surveillance, behavior modification, AI dependence. These are words that we're going to be hearing a whole lot. As I told you, I would be attending all of the sessions, as many as I could, that were open, of the World Economic Forum Summit that just ended in Davos, and I certainly did. And so these are some of the stuff we heard there, some of the things coming out of Davos. Science-based, not so much, but we are throwing in science-based medical dictatorship because we see that coming. Transhumanism, smart cities, Stargate, of course, AI dominance, AI arms race, cancer vaccines, mRNA vaccine for cancer, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole lot more. But as the morning progresses, we hope to get through some of these, most definitely. In the meantime, though, what for joining us? The AI arms race is on in earnest, as we indicated just now. And just before we go to our interview, which really has nothing to do with that, I want to play for you a quick clip, a very short clip, of Larry Ellison of Oracle. And his name will come up again in the morning because he was at the press conference with Donald Trump, outlining Stargate and the next big thing for artificial intelligence. But Larry Ellison has been on this for a while. And just recently, he spoke about what the future would look like. Believe me, this is dystopic. They have already started work on this, he says. But anyway, give a listen to this, and we'll come back to this later on. When we talk about bearing witness, it's not just watching, and we'll also come back to that. But listen to Larry Ellison, and we'll pick up on the other side.
Police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video. So if that altercation that occurred in Memphis, the chief of police would be immediately notified. It's not people that are looking at those cameras. It's AI that's looking at the cameras. No. You can't do this. It would be like a shooting. That's going to be an event that's immediately, an alarm is going to go off. It's going to be, and we're going to have supervision. In other words, every police officer is going to be supervised at all times. And the supervision will, and if there's a problem, AI will report the problem and report it to the appropriate person, whether it's the sheriff or the chief or whomever we need to take control of the situation. We have, same thing. We have drones. If there's something going on in a shopping center, and I'll stop. A drone goes out there, get there way faster than a police car. There's no reason for, by the way, high-speed chases. You shouldn't have high-speed chases between cars. You just have a drone follow the car. I mean, it's very, very simple. And the new generation of autonomous drones.
All right. So that is Larry Ellison. And this is the man who stood beside the president, newly elected president of the United States, 2 days after the second day after the inauguration, rolling out Stargate. He's talking about behavior modification, and he's talking about mass surveillance using AI, and it's already happening. All right, we're going to come back to that later on in the program, and this is not to frighten or scare anyone. It is to say, as African people, we are on our own. It is up to us to determine how we're going to be engaging with this, how we're going to be protecting our families, ourselves, and how we're prepared for our own future, food security and water security. Water security was one of the main things discussed at the World Economic Forum last week. Here in Jamaica, though, water sources are being given away to foreign operatives on the island. We'll come back to that. We're going to get to the phone lines now because my brother Jawari Akhenaton, Vice President of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the Queen Mother Samad Division 455, CEO of the Black Star Fishing and Trading Company, which maintains several fishing vessels engaged in deep water fishing expeditions, and an accomplished poet, Garveyite, and revolutionary. Not sure if our brother Heru Aisha Kamusa Menelek is with him, High Commissioner of the UNIA and ACL, Vice President of the Marcus Garvey's People's Political Party, and Yoruba High Priest. But Jawari, my brother, you there?
I'm here, always for you, my sister Kabu.
All right, brilliant.
Protect my Garveyite freedom fighter, sister Kabu. Much love and much blessings.
Thank you so much, and greetings to you too. Is Heru Aisha Kamusa there?
I've been trying to call him. I don't know if AI is taking over the telephones, but I haven't reached him, so it shall be progress until we get in touch with him. All
right, so Joey, one of the things, the main thing we're talking about this morning, and congratulations on this. This is really a development that we are happy to report on, which is the formal formation and I think inauguration. You can tell me if what has happened so far of the Queen Mother Samad UNIA Division 455.
Well, my sister, let's start by one of Mr. Garvey's quotes. A race that is solely dependent upon another for economic existence sooner or later dies.
Yes.
You know, our people are in a dire state, as you can see, as you expound every day, and it is getting worse. And the savagery that is overwhelming us from those people, those criminals in the United States and Europe, really, France included, is overwhelming. So this is a foundation for us to start building and moving to higher unity of our people. I mean, I don't want to sound frightened and emotional, but we have to be very wary of what these people are trying to do to us in terms of domination, control, resources. They're trying to even kill us off. Look at what they're doing in Gaza. They're going to try to kill off all those people, and Trump is the condom that they use, because we know that all this money is behind Trump, Elon Musk and all these other criminals that are there wasting the resources of the earth that they stole from South Africa to do all this evil. So it's not
I'm sorry to interrupt, Jawari, but because we have our brother Heru online, and we do have to conference this call, we can't do it while we're having the conversation with you. So I'm going to ask you to hang up. Should I ask him to hang up? And then you dial again. All right, so hang up for me quickly, and then we'll just dial both of you again and get you in studio. My apologies. All right.
No problem.
All right. Okay, so that's going to be coming up in a little while. We're going to continue the conversation. The Queen Mother Samad, Division 455, up and running. And so want to have that conversation with underway in the Congo right now, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where the M23 rebels, which are M23 terrorists who are backed by Rwanda, are wreaking havoc on Congo as we speak. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk a bit more about that this morning. But let's bear that in mind as we go back to the phone lines, where our brother Heru Aisha Kamusa Menelek is online, Jawari Akhenaton. Heru, greetings, my brother. Welcome to the space.
Greetings and blessings.
All right. Good to have you on. Jawari, you are giving us a background to the Queen Mother Samad Division 455, the UNIA. And but let's go to that, because the history of this, the Queen Mother Samad Division 455, it's called, obviously, Queen Mother Samad Division, so there is a link there with our dearly departed, our ancestor now, Queen Mother Samad. What's the background to this?
Well, let me say something quickly. Nothing happens by coincidence. So it is not coincidence that Brother Heru is on the line right now, who is most qualified to give you all the answers. Brother Heru, would you please answer our questions? Brother Heru?
Greetings.
Yes. Did you hear the request of Sister Kabu in reference to our relationship to Queen Mother Samad and how we got the division formed? And would you please relate all that history to her at this moment?
Okay. Queen Mother Samad, we call her the unrepentant Garveyite. She's an American citizen who came to Jamaica. She was married to a Jamaican. Came to Jamaica and fell in love with Jamaicans, decided she would make Jamaica her home. The division now, how the division started is when she got very ill, she bequeathed her home to the UNIA Division 455 to continue her works. She would have schools come to her home, and she teach them about Marcus Garvey, Garveyism, and Black history. And the Division 455 was put in place by her through her will to continue that work. The courts have just completed the probate of her will, and the division was reconstituted at her home on the 7th of January last year. And we will continue the works to spread Garveyism right through Jamaica.
A quick editorial note, because obviously persons listening must be a bit confused at this time if they do not know what the ongoing conflicts are within Molimu Garvey's UNIA generally, because of course we have on the island head of the UNIA, Stephen Golding, and we're hearing this morning of the UNIA High Commissioner Heru Aisha. We're hearing Vice President Jawari Akhenaton. Obviously, there has been an ongoing conflict. There's a split in Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey's UNIA. Can you tell us exactly what that is, and so as we can understand why we have two branches of the UNIA operating here in Jamaica, two different branches?
Well, it's very unfortunate. When the Honorable Marcus Garvey was sent to prison in America in 1925, the UNIA was infiltrated, and Marcus Messiah Garvey was the President General serving his term of office while he was in jail. After serving 2 years in 1927, his stay in prison was commuted. The sentence was commuted, and he was deported to Jamaica in 1927. Mr. Garvey argued with what had happened in 1925 while he was in prison. They voted in a new President General. They, the UNIA members, the ones that were infiltrated the organization. Mr. Garvey pleaded with them for 2 years, from 1927 to 1929. Mr. Garvey pleaded with them to say, listen, I am the official President General, and you should desist from having another President General representing the UNIA. They would not relent. So Mr. Garvey in 1929, while he was in Jamaica, when he was deported, he re-registered the UNIA in Jamaica as UNIA 1929 of the world. The UNIA that was registered in America in 1917 was the UNIA Incorporated. Now, what has happened is that since 1929, we have had two UNIAs. The 1929 of the world, that the Honorable Marcus Garvey re-registered in Jamaica to carry out his works, and the UNIA Incorporated in America that defected and started and have a President General in America.
So let me ask you, Jawari, with the everybody knows where I stand now with the pardon of Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey granted by the United States. But putting everything in context, with this pardon and considering that the defective, the branch that defected did so while he was in prison, and let us say they did that because they bought into the fraud, they bought into the lies, and bought into this idea that Mwalimu had done something wrong. Let us say they bought into that. Now let me just finish the question. Now that there is this pardon by the same U.S. government, what does that mean for a reconciliation of the two branches, or does it mean anything at all?
My sister, can I answer that one?
Yes, I was asking you.
Yes, we have some tremendous work to continue, and I don't see the need for us to be fighting against each other to elevate Marcus Garvey and his work. As it stands, the one to which I belong, which is the one that Marcus Garvey put together after he came from prison, it is the elite, it is the number one, it is the real thing. Marcus Garvey is it. Makes it genuine. So I would advise other sections to try to relent on the war or the conflict and let us join with each other to build one UNIA to face the battles in front of us with these supreme devils trying to destroy the world and us, rather than with fighting and bickering, like schoolgirls about something which is really toward destruction. Because as Mr. Garvey puts it, the greatest weapon used against the Negro is disorganization. And what we are doing right now with all this conflict and all this misunderstanding and failure to come together is to show and to prove that his word is true. We are highly disorganized people. We are the most disorganized people on the face of the earth. Period.
Is this a time then, and I hear you saying it's a time for it, for the unity, for coming together? Is the Queen Mother Samar division, which is connected to the UNIA that Mwalimu himself set up because of the defection of others who literally hijacked the UNIA from him? Is this a time? Will the UNIA and the Queen Mother Samar branch lead the charge for that reconciliation, at least for the conversation to start?
Well, we have to do that. There's no question about that, because if we are for the unification of all African people all over the world, why should we be trying to show unity and at the same time have ill feelings and aggression towards another group of people within our race? And why can't we come together and discuss it and put it together in a format where it becomes a history, anachronism, and we can move on in the right direction? That is my personal opinion on that.
Yes. Brother Heru, how many branches of the UNIA and ACL under what's the difference between the two names again? Because here we have UNIA and ACL, but is there a difference in names any at all, incorporated and?
Well, it's just the two names, the incorporated in the United States and the 1929 of the world of our division in Jamaica.
All right.
But what we had proposed to have a joint convention that both president generals, after they serve their terms, they serve for 2 years in each case. And at the end of that 2-year term, we would have a convention where we would elect one president general. It has resounded with a couple of the members, and they are articulating on the same line to have a joint convention of both UNIAs and have one president general elected.
Because at the same time, we have a narrative about what this pardon means. And so that to me, it would seem as if the first thing, if we were going to accept the pardon, which I for me, what my thinking is on it. But anyone who accepts the pardon, if this is the case, and the narrative is that it's a first rung on the ladder to expunging Mwalimu's records, I think that's a bag of bull, not Nogoso. It is not possible. The point, though, is that if that narrative if we're going to spin that narrative, then obviously the first thing to do would be to look within the UNIA itself for unity on that pivoting, but on that foundation of the pardon, wouldn't it?
Yes, I agree, my sister. But we have to get serious about this thing. We can't be just talking about it and not achieving anything. So until that time, until we can get together and say, let us put aside our differences as brothers, black people, whose ancestors suffered slavery and blood-curdling events, for us to be here just acting a fool like this? No, I can't accept that as black unity. So until we get to that stage where we can denounce that and see that as something decrepit and disgusting and move to a fraternal love and the building of a black nation, We're just talking the talk.
All right. Okay, so we have High Commissioner Kheru Menelek, and we have Vice President Jawari Akhenaton of the Queen Mother Samaj Division 455 here in Jamaica. I'm going to ask each of you to say what your mandate is. I'll start with you, Brother Kheru. So what is your mandate, and how can persons be part of what is happening here in Jamaica with the Queen Mother Samaj Division?
Thank you ever so much. We are doing the works of the Honorable Marcus Garvey, and we hope to continue that work. In Mr. Garvey's time, we had 11 divisions operating in Jamaica. We had the strongest divisions operating out of Jamaica. And the President General, the Honorable Michael Duncan, he has mandated us. We just spoke to him. He's in Liberia. He just mandated us to restart and have at least one division in every parish. That is our mandate right now, to get the UNIA in every parish to have at least one division. Our second mandate is to start farms to feed ourselves. We have started a Liberty Farm in St. Catherine. We had a division in St. Catherine, Division 427. The president of that division just passed, so we are reorganizing that division now to rise up. And we will be having weekly meetings right across the island to energize the people, to let them know that the UNIA is also the black man's government. And what is happening in Jamaica with the two colonial parties that have been directing Jamaica and bring Jamaica to this decadent state. We will rise up the Marcus Garvey People's Political Party as the government of Jamaica. So that's our two mandates that our President General has given to us. And today we'll be having a meeting at Brother Miguel Lawrence's place to further that mandate.
Is this an open meeting?
This meeting is an executive meeting, but we'll be having an open meeting at the House of Dread, 3 Deanery Road, next Sunday.
Okay.
The public is invited to that meeting.
What time?
It starts at 2 p.m.
All right. And Jawari, you're as a vice president, what is your mandate? And under the overall mandate, what's your role as a vice president?
My sister, I would say it in a metaphorical way. It takes all 10 fingers to clap. So whichever role that I have to fit in, I'm going to fit in there and do to the best of my ability, because I'm a committed Garveyite. I'm a committed freedom fighter. I'm tired of seeing my people suffer, and I'm sure there's a lot we can do to help each other. I was just thinking that, just off the record, if 1 million Jamaicans, there are 3 million Jamaicans here, if 1 million Jamaicans gave $100 a month towards building and removing some of the sufferation in Jamaica, 100 million a month to help remove all the scourges without depending on the government. That is what Mr. Garvey preached. Self-empowerment. Do it for your own self and build your own self. Those guys will never be on your side. They're going to be always ripping and running and taking your resources and conning you and fooling you and leaving sufferation to be in your country. And the stench of it is overwhelming. We, the people, have to get together. Whether we are professed Garveyites or not, which all of us are Garveyites, we just don't know it. But if we even just decide to, I'm going to help my country by giving, I'm going to save $100 a month and give to the building of my nation with my people doing the job.
How can persons who are listening before any of the meetings begin and are interested in being part of this revival, if you will, this renaissance of Mortimer's Garvey's UNIA here on the island in Jamaica? Go ahead. You can sure? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, you can give our phone numbers are for public knowledge. So if they want it, I can give them mine. It's 876-819-0716. And Brother Kheru, would you give them yours?
Certainly. 876-423-7999.
Okay. And just before you go, because we're out of time, so the big thing coming out of the United States last week, this happened last week Sunday while I was on air, the Joe Biden's government pardoned Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey.
Yes.
Your own thinking on this, both of you? Yes.
A big smoke screen at best. However, there are positive repercussions that could further our cause. Enlighten our people. Wake up. Look what's happening. These people are using our history and our suffering to make themselves look good. Like Biden is looking good. He's looking better than Obama, who was there and could have done it and didn't do it. So therefore, they're giving themselves all these accolades. But at the same time, we're not concerned with that. We're concerned with that from the point of view of what they're planning to do, like what Trump is planning to do. That's our lives. But at the same time, we have to find a way to come together, Sister Kabu. We have to put ourselves together. And right now, I see a spiritual awakening in terms of the amount of things that are happening at the same time in reference to our progress and Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey is a poster boy right now in the world as far as black people is concerned, or should be.
And you're thinking... go ahead. Finish a sentence. I was going to bother Heru because we're out of time. Yes.
I'm looking at a light at the end of the tunnel. Mm-hmm. Before it was kind of hazy and dark. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Brother Heru? Yes. Brother Heru?
Well, we look at the pardon as something that has happened to re-energize and remind black people the world over that we must form the black government in the world. That's the vision of the Honorable Marcus Garvey. In 1914, he said, "Where is the black man government?" He saw none, and he said, "I, Marcus Garvey, will create the black man's government," when he formed the UNIA. The UNIA is the black man's government of the world. So we have to energize black people the world over to show that we are the true leaders of the world.
All right. Thank you so much, brothers. High Commissioner of the UNIA and ACL, Vice President of the Marcus Garvey People's Political Party, Yoruba High Priest Heru Aisha Kamusa Menelik, and Vice President of the UNIA, Queen Mother Samar Division 455, CEO of the Black Star Fishing and Trading Company, Jawari, accomplished poet, Garveyite, revolutionary Jawari Akhenaton. Thank you both. My pleasure to have had you on this morning. Thank you so much. And this is really a great thing in the name of Mother Samar. This is really a brilliant thing. So let me just congratulate you for getting it off the ground.
Yes, my sister. And we are all part of a spiritual modality. We keep moving in a spiritual realm. That's why all of us are gathered here and all these things are happening to us right now.
Give thanks, of course. All right. So, beloved brothers, they are just talking about the Queen Mother Samar Division 455, which is now up and running. You heard the telephone numbers that they gave out. This is something that we can get involved in immediately. We're going to, all morning we're talking about geopolitical issues, Pan-African issues. We're looking through our African-centered lenses at these geopolitical events happening across the world. Of course, one of the big things, and I mentioned that earlier, that is happening now is the AI arms race that is on. Stargate was announced. China came out with DeepSeek, and Stargate looks like a baby that is just learning to creep. But Larry Ellison, who you heard earlier, talking about mass surveillance in a dystopian Orwellian 1984 kind of way, is a founder of Oracle. And he has expressed views that artificial intelligence could lead to a surveillance state. And I'm trying to take this call. All right, so we're having, let me see. All right, so it's if you do this for me, because there are two things happening right there. I do not have a technical operator, so I'm trying to figure everything out. But if you do that for me. So he, as you heard earlier, we played that. He talked about artificial intelligence, that this could lead to a surveillance state. And he said just a few months ago, September I'm so sorry, my apologies. He mentioned that AI-powered cameras would ensure citizens are on their best behavior because they're constantly being recorded and reported. This is, if you've seen the movie The Handmaid's Tale, this gives you a pretty good idea of what he's talking about. But if you've read also 1984, it is almost coming to life in front of us. And he talks about envisioning a future where police officers would be supervised at all times, where citizens would be supervised at all times through AI-powered body cameras, and that AI would monitor video feeds from drones, cars, and other cameras to detect and respond to incidents. And he also believes this would create a safer society. We heard him just now. I played the clip and I'll play it again. But he's the very same person we saw standing beside the newly elected president of the United States as they roll out phase 2 of Vision 2030, the technocracy agenda, the technocracy and transhumanism agenda. This is what they're rolling out now on the back of COVID, because COVID was a psyop. And this also is another psyop. We don't want to be confused by what we're hearing, by what is going on around us. And this is why my job for this entire year is to refocus our attention under the theme, we are on our own, reshaping the future of Africa and the Caribbean for our children and what that entails. Going to go to the phone lines now to speak with our geopolitical analyst, Pan-African scholar and engineer, Kwame Pianke. My brother, Kwame Pianke, thank you so much for joining us. Right. Kwame, you're hearing me? Brother Kwame?
I'm hearing you. Good morning.
Morning, Cuz. How are you doing?
I am fine, Cuz. How are you?
I am well, as long as you two are well. A lot happening around us. I know we have particular specific things to talk about, but we're waking up this morning to hear Donald Trump saying on Air Force One that he's talking to Egypt, he's talking to Jordan, and the plan is to ethnically cleanse and forcibly remove 1.3 or so million Palestinians into Jordan and into Egypt. And the term he used is to clean out the area. This is on the back of what his son-in-law said a few months ago, which was that entire area needs to be cleaned out because it is prime real estate. Off the top of your head, looking through your geopolitical lens, Brother Kwame, what's your thought on it?
Well, I know he's trying to satisfy his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, with the West Bank cleanup there. Boy, there's so much chaos with Trump. It's hard to know what's real from what is not real. So that one, I'm going to take a step back and observe. To be honest with you, I mean, in American football, you have a concept where the offense will run a lot of motion to confuse the defense, and then they'll run a basic play behind that motion. So, I mean, who's to say? That one I really do not know.
Lots of, and you talk about chaos, and this is what we had said earlier. So order out of chaos, and this is a 3-card game. It's smoke and mirrors. Look there, look here, look everywhere. And the question is, what are we missing? Because we're being pointed in so many different directions. Should we be looking at ourselves? Should we be looking at our people? Should we be looking at our nations? Isn't that what we should be doing now?
Exactly, because every day, I mean, I was telling my wife, and I actually talked to another cousin of mine yesterday, and I was saying that this whole Trump thing, I'm just sitting back eating my popcorn and watching the show, right? But really, the real thing we should do is be eating our popcorn, watching the show, and building for ourselves. Because Trump is a symptom of the final decline of an empire. You could say Biden put the nail in the coffin, but Trump is kind of like the bell ringer of the final decline of an empire. And in my personal opinion, his whole role is to negotiate the decline of the United States and negotiate the I don't want to say implosion, but have a controlled implosion of the United States essentially, and that's his role. So this chaos is to mask a lot of things, in my personal opinion.
I do agree with you,
and that includes the whole Greenland and Canada thing, because basically the U.S. is going to cede Eurasia, and so they need to have some sort of resources to depend on, and thus threats against Greenland and Canada. And then them ceding Eurasia basically blows up the whole 120-year British strategy of controlling Eurasia. And that's why Trump doesn't get along with the Keir Starmer government there as well. So this again is a retreat. Yeah. The bluster is the mask of retreat. Yes. In the world.
Yes. And talking about building, watching them, but building for ourselves, what do we do in the meantime? What we see happening in East Africa and what with the how those countries, Mali, Burkina Faso, and specifically Burkina Faso and Traore, are building as opposed to responding, proactive in engaging with our best selves, if you will, looking to the future. Yeah. I know that there have been some developments, and these are positive developments. Last time we spoke, which was 2 weeks ago, we were pretty optimistic, although cautiously, about what was happening in the region. Since then, those developments we're seeing, and I'd want you to point out some of those for us, specifically as it relates to debt, Burkina Faso's debt and so on. What does that mean?
Burkina Faso paid off their internal debt. I think it was 300 billion CFA francs, which is equates to 4.8 billion U.S. And then Mali paid off 332 million of internal debt. Now, the propaganda arms, the Voice of America and Agency France Press, try to deny the two countries are paying off their debt. But that the Burkina Faso announcement comes from their information bureau themselves. The Mali announcement comes from the finance minister. So, but I think the purpose of the counter propaganda from Voice of America, Agency France Press, is not intended for the Sahel states. It's intended for the other states that may be tempted to do the same thing, and that includes the Caribbean, saying that you can't, you need us. You need us. Don't walk away from us. Don't dare pay off our debts. Because there's no intent for when the IMF and the World Bank comes in and does their restructuring programs. They do not really want the countries to pay off their debts. They want to get the assets and resources of those countries for pennies on the dollar. And that is the intent. And when a country pays off its debts, they can develop themselves internally, develop their manufacturing industry, develop their agriculture industry, as you see going on in Burkina Faso and Mali and Niger. Because I think they've had bumper crops this year, despite the threats from terrorism.
And so you talk about
it's really a method shield of the country.
You talk about the disinformation campaign that is being run by state media in the United States and other liberal media outlets and conservative, because this is basically what's happening now, and not just them, but generally. Yeah. I remember being on the phone with you and the research that you had to do, dig deep, move from one to one, and we were on the phone sorting this through, and you finally said, I found it. Because one of the things we wanted was to ensure that we could verify that the debts were paid off, because the disinformation campaign, it was so pervasive. And finally, tell us about that, Kwame. How did you come to verify this information?
Well, what I did, we found an article in something called 24/7 Sports, but they didn't source it. But I actually took a quote from that article, pasted it in the browser, and then it popped, and then that popped up the Burkina Faso Bureau of Information. Plus, I looked at the Chamber of Commerce, the Burkina Faso Chamber of Commerce page, and they didn't quote the CFA franc, but they quoted the conference which they attended, where the Prime Minister made that announcement. Now, the internal debt isn't completely paid off, but they intend to pay off all the internal debt for Burkina Faso. So, but it was a significant amount, and to me, the other bit of misinformation is that the Voice of America says Burkina Faso does not control its own resources. Okay, on the face of it, you could say that's true, but they have exerted more control of the resources by demanding bigger royalties, and they have also nationalized 2 gold mines from the British. And again, that is very important. And I'm going to make the reason I'm mentioning the British, the French minister that's responsible for Africa, his name is Jean-Marie Hakel, went to present his neo-colonial plan to the British this week. And then suddenly we get these articles, right? And in 2016, there's a report that said that the British government has the British interests have $1 trillion in mining interest in Africa. Wrap your mind around that. $1 trillion in mining interest in Africa, and if they lose this, it could their economy is on the verge of collapse anyway. But it would just basically bury them if they lose their mining interest in Africa. And Burkina Faso taking over those 2 mines, and Mali basically threatening arrest of the CEO of not threatening arrest. They put out a warrant for the arrest of the CEO of Barrick Gold for underpayment of taxes. And Barrick Gold is based in Canada, but you can say that's part of the British sphere because the CEO is from South Africa, and of course Canada is part of the so-called Commonwealth. This is a direct threat to the British too, even though the Sahel countries are considered quote unquote francophone countries.
And so another geopolitical analyst and Pan-African scholar engineer Kwame Pianke, we're looking through our lenses, or African-centered lenses, and all of these new and not so new events and issues happening around us through our lens, helping us to understand better what our purpose, what our role, what our responsibilities should be in this time of apparent chaos. Kwame, you talk about the relationship between Britain and the United Kingdom. We see this appearing to be fractured. I think they're just trying to get the UK in a position where they get them on their side for whatever reason, because we see Britain's relationship, for example, with Paul Kagame is interesting. As we speak today, Kagame's Britain's man in Africa is Kagame. And as we speak right now, there is the M23 rebels backed by Kagame. They are Kagame's terrorists capturing towns and villages. Yeah. We see people running for their lives right now in the Congo. Congo could take care of the entire world's minerals needs, if you ask me. This is basically that entire region. And so there is really a race, and I think it's part of this AI arms race for the minerals of Congo. From what you're seeing and hearing, I heard Donald Trump, for example, in his inauguration speech and almost everything after that, talk about the people who are coming in from, the criminals who are coming in from Mexico, and they're coming in from so on. And then every time he throws in Congo. But every time Congo is so out of place. And you keep saying, why Congo? So what do you think, how, from where you stand, what are some of the policies that we see him unfolding so far, coming out of this new White House, that can have some impact on the continent of Africa, or no?
Well, the foreign aid, where he suspended the foreign aid, that is going to have an impact in a sense, because we spoke about this in the wake of the election. If you look at the foreign aid order that he had put out there, it says basically, Section 1, the purpose is the United States foreign aid and its industry and bureaucracy are not aligned with American interests, and in many cases antithetical to American values. They serve to destabilize the world peace by promoting ideas, and this is the important part, in foreign countries that are directly inverse to the harmonious, stable relations internal to and among countries. And so basically, remember we said that there was going to be the difference between Trump's administration and the Biden administration, there'll be less interference, internal interference in terms of social issues. I'm not going to say military or covert military interference, but I'm saying in terms of internal interference. So I think that is going to be a big effect. When it comes to Congo specifically, China controls, I believe, most of the resources in the Congo.
Yes.
Both DRC and the other one,
Angola,
the other kind of,
yeah. All of that, all the way to the beginning of the Lobito corridor. This is China controlled. Yeah.
So it's the British Desperate Act and the American Desperate Act to try to get access to these resources, because China controls the world's rare earths. China controls the lithium. China controls most of the coltan and cobalt and copper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's desperation on the part of the tech industry of the United States to build it up. Britain just wants to control the mining. Again, we spoke about the $1 trillion of mining that they would like to sell to the tech industries, because let's be frank, Britain has no real engineering industry and hasn't had any since the 1960s. Britain is this is my little shot at Britain. Britain is a technologically backwards country, right?
That's a big shot at Britain.
Huh?
You're right. I agree with you, actually.
I have no. Me working with British engineers has confirmed that they're not up to snuff. They really are up to snuff, and so they need the mining to sell to other. They have. The mining countries will control the mining companies will control the raw materials that will sell to the technically capable countries of manufacturing these things. And then, frankly, America is slipping in engineering, because a lot of the engineering of American technology occurs in Asia. Remember, they tried to restore the chip industry in the United States, and that's been a failure.
Yes.
So they're kind of backed in the corner as well, especially with the antagonism against China. Where they have to rely on India primarily for the technology. Good luck with that one. And again, you can say I'm taking my shots today at various various countries in terms of engineering. Yes. India does not have an impressive group of engineers either.
And as you say that, it brings into focus what's happening in the last 2 days. So the U.S. rolls out Stargate, and obviously it's not a government run thing, even though it was announced in the way it was announced, but it's private, public-private partnership, mainly private. And so they roll out Stargate, but China comes back with DeepSeek. And from what I'm reading and what I'm seeing, there is a scramble now, because DeepSeek it's been thrown out there for public consumption, and Stargate was held up as the best thing since whenever, in terms of, and you heard that, how where America would be in AI, rolling out and growing out AI technology. So it goes to the point you make, that America seems always to be caught off guard. One, with Putin, remember that weapon? And now with DeepSeek.
Weapon, yep. Yes, and it goes back to American education. I mean, you have the argument in Trump land, and I'm going to go with another. There's going to be two arguments in Trump land, because there's a dispute between Elon Musk and Larry Ellison as well too. Yes, so we're going to get to that in a second.
Yes.
But the thing is that there's that dispute over the H-1B workers versus why aren't you hiring American workers, and so on and so forth. And I can see both sides of the argument. They want the cheap labor coming in for the H-1B workers. However, Americans aren't majoring in STEM. They'll go to college and major in very non-STEM things and wind up working in grocery stores for all intents and purposes, right? Wasting their parents' money. And then number two, math is not properly taught in the United States. Two, they've taken the vocational training out of the high schools. And so America's behind technologically. And I think I said several weeks ago, it would take a minimum 20 years to get American industry back on its feet, because you don't have the technical capability in this country. Yeah. So that's why America's always behind. Yeah. And then number two, in terms of military technology, the American private contractor system has become an impediment because the private contractors rip off the taxpayers by overcharging for basic things. So whereas the state-owned, the Chinese and the Russians, their military technology are developed by state-owned entities, so they're not going to overcharge. So it's basically a vicious circle or doom loop that American technology is in.
They're on the back foot one way or the other, because with China flipping the script as they're doing now with this insanely efficient open source AI, which is really challenging Stargate in the space. It's a power move. And as I said earlier, they have democratized the access to DeepSeek. And I think this is maybe for another discussion, but the extent to which they have disrupted the market. Yes.
Yeah, I'm very skeptical of AI. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. AI requires a bunch of programmers, and in fact, there's a little term. There is a little colloquial term for AI. It means all Indians. It means a bunch of Indian programmers in the background programming the AI. Right, so AI is oversold. There's a great video on YouTube by a professor named Patrick Bailey that I would refer people to in terms of AI's the overselling of AI. I think I'm sorry to interrupt, Kwame, but I think this is the point China was making by dropping DeepSeek in the midst. It's like a geopolitical mic drop, if you ask me, because basically what they have done is that they've dropped something into the market. They've disrupted the market. They've literally shown that it's not that expensive. It's not that a big deal, and everybody can use what we have here. So they just dropped it into the space, and I think basically this is the argument they're doing. They're making because again, Chinese engineers and programmers come cheaper than American programmers, and then Indian program. His name is Patrick Boyle. Excuse me. But yeah, so they come cheaper for one. Two, again, the technological proficiency of American programmers is not good, and engineers are not good because again they're not prepared properly in school.
But then for us as Africans now, so we go back to continental Africa and the rush on the land for minerals. To whether we're skeptical of it or no, Kwame, this is the end result for us, or part of the process for us, which is what we see happening in Congo.
Yeah,
is what we see happening with the Lobito corridor.
The part I'm not skeptical of is the hardware. The hardware you still require the minerals for the hardware. AI, when they're talking about AI, again, AI is really the software, but we're talking the hardware to run our phones, to run our computers, to run these electrical vehicles. Another thing I'm skeptical of, but that's a conversation for another day. And I have direct experience in that. By the way, is you need these rare earths, you need these, the other minerals that I've mentioned to run these systems, and that is why you have to scramble for these minerals.
Yes. All right, let me take a quick break.
The reason the Chinese went into EV is that they saw they could not compete in developing competent, high-quality internal combustion engines. So they went into EV as an advantage over, say, the Japanese. And so basically, and then requiring the various companies that participate in the Chinese market to do EV. So they basically tried to control, because they had control of the resources for EV. They went to EV as a basically as a competitive advantage. But to be honest with you, EV has some very serious issues compared to the internal combustion engine.
So we're going to have that conversation another time, because I know this is something you're very versed on. You're very well versed on this, so we'll come back to this. This is definitely your area of expertise if you're talking about engineering and understanding motor vehicles.
Don't joke with cans tomato ketchup, richer, thicker, and more affordable.
The time is
now 7:34.
The report is out.
What report?
The Constitutional Reform Committee's report of recommendations.
Recommendations on what?
On how we move from a monarchy to a republic, of course.
So what's in it?
The creation of the office of president and changes to our parliament. Yes, man. It also includes a new qualification for membership in parliament. I know you want to see that one.
Read the full report at roadtorepublic.mlca.gov.jm.
We are on the road to republic.
On Sunday, January 26th, Sugarman's Beach, Portmore comes alive with the anniversary of Jamaica's biggest inclusive dancehall festival. Ladies, get your bikinis ready for the all-white celebration.
We are gonna party tonight, just watch. Tonight, me feel like spend some cash.
The widest variety of liquor inclusive. Drink all you can. Ladies, 2 for 1 before 4 p.m. with your pre-sold tickets. Chug it!
IMC 25, the creative capital, Kingston, Jamaica, February 19 through 23. Every February, every artiste, writer, producer, manager, booking agent, backing vocalist, beat maker, all MIPs converge on another level in music. The Caribbean meets the world in Jamaica. Island Music Conference. Only if you're serious about the music. Check the website. Island Music.
Scholar, engineer Kwame Pianke is online. Kwame, before we move on to, Trump's other announcement, which includes whatever is being done with DEI and so on, there is something happened at the press conference, right, announcing Stargate, which was an announcement of mRNA vaccines.
Yeah.
For cancer. You're thinking on that?
Well, they've been trying vaccines against cancer since the Nixon administration. They've all failed badly, right? And then you're adding the mRNA to the mix, which has been proven to create turbo cancers, and you see all the injuries that have resulted from the mRNA COVID vaccine. Mm-hmm. So this has all been proven. We're not conspiracy theorists anymore in talking about this. This is all
exactly.
in the data. In the databases that comes out to this. So this is Trump's reward to the tech industry. And again, all these tech guys used to be firm supporters of the Democratic Party, and they suddenly shifted to Trump within the past couple of years because the Biden administration would not let them have their way with AI, and they wanted to regulate AI and other things. Mm-hmm. So I think this is Trump's gift to the tech industry. However, it contradicts the philosophy of his Health and Human Secretary nominee by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how this plays out as well. And also, it's created division in Trump land, right? Because what happens is that Elon Musk, I'm going to find his quote here, basically said that that whole $500 billion funding by SoftBank did not come true.
He says
they're only funded by 10.
They don't have the money. He says
they don't have the money. And it's funny now they have limited Elon Musk's access to the West Wing. They say he's not going to have an office in there. Funny enough.
but we have. So you think SoftBank or what the company is called?
SoftBank is a Japanese company, by the way, too.
They were present there, and they talk about rolling out $1 billion for now, and then $4 more billion for the next 4 years, taking up to the $500 billion that is required for this project. But Elon is saying they don't have the money.
Yeah, exactly. At that rate, that would take, $5 billion. Come on, do my math. You're taking 100 years to fund this project. So that rate there. So I mean,
let me ask you this, because COVID mRNA vaccine. I mean, that came out of people were saying, no, they're not going to do it because it takes so much. It takes 8 years to even see where you're going with the vaccine. They changed the definition of vaccine and rolled out mRNA gene therapy. So they already have the know-how to do this. And couldn't it work for almost anything? All they have to do is flip it.
Exactly. Remember, it was devastating. The research on the rats was devastating.
Yes.
In previous for mRNA, even somebody like Hotez was Peter Hotez, who's pro-vaccine, was very alarmed by the speed they came out with the mRNA vaccine because he felt it would ruin the vaccine industry reputation, right? Which it has. And so again, remember, cancer is a disease of toxicity. It's a disease of lack of nutrients. It's a disease of infection, right? For instance, 40% of all cancers are a result of infection. And that's due to lack of iodine. A lot of cancers are created from not enough zinc supplementation or zinc in your diet, and not the proper balance between zinc and copper, right? And so these are, but yet they're trying to find vaccines for that. You know, and me saying that, I'm giving the audience a clue as what to do to prevent cancer.
Yes, loud and clear. Loud and clear. We got the point. But Kwame, COVID was the flu.
Exactly, COVID was a flu, and we're talking again. The whole isolation process is not correct. The definition of isolating a flu or isolating a disease is not done correctly during COVID. And there's a whole bunch of articles on the original definition of the flu. And I'm trying to remember at the time of COVID, it was a German scientist who developed it in the 1920s, the criteria for isolating pathogen. And that wasn't followed properly during COVID.
And yet they use the mRNA vaccine, and the first people to take it were the scientists and the academic community, academia.
Exactly.
So when you have the technocrats and academia literally laying down for the politicians, that was a psyop, right? We agree that was a psyop, and this is why I think.
Oh yeah, it was a psyop to cover. It was a psyop to cover up the financial collapse of the West. And that is again, if you go back to August of 2019, you have something called the repo market, which is basically how companies borrow cash to do their daily needs. That market completely collapsed in August of 2019. Then they had the big conference at Jackson Hole to say we need to drop helicopter money on the people, and this is August 2019. In Jackson Hole was a central bank conference, and then suddenly you had COVID a few months later, where they're dropping helicopter money on the public, right? And so essentially, it was to cover up a collapse of the Western economy, and to a certain extent, the world economy. And it was also a way to transfer wealth to the billionaires. I mean, I think the billionaires' wealth increased by 45% during COVID, something like that.
Yes,
maybe I'm being conservative when I say
very
that.
Conservative. If you look at people like Bill Gates, for example, who everybody said that he would be now locked up on Guantanamo Bay, but he had a 3-hour dinner with Donald Trump just last week.
With Trump, yeah. Bezos' wealth increased greatly. Yeah. I mean, all the big tech billionaires. It was a transfer of wealth to the billionaire while small businesses were crushed, right? And so,
point well taken.
So this whole, so it was a psyop. It was a psyop to mask the fact of economic collapse. But here we go again.
That's the point.
We have an economic collapse going on.
And just to segue a bit back to Bill Gates, because we talk about the mRNA cancer vaccine. We had that big announcement from Larry Ellison, and we had Bill Gates saying, "I had dinner with Trump." What did you talk about? He said we talked about a vaccine, a cure for HIV. All of a sudden, they're digging up at HIV, and also for polio. And he went as far as to say that we see polio cases emerging in Afghanistan, in parts of the Middle East, and on the continent of Africa. So here we go again.
Polio is hygiene, right? There was a doctor in Texas back in the early 1900s, and I think I know his last name was Campbell. I think his name was A.R. Campbell. And what he had done was, there was a polio epidemic there in that part of Texas. And the long story short, he did some experience with bats and things of that nature. And essentially what he found out was polio was a result of basically people having unclean linen. And so, no, I'm sorry, that's smallpox. Let me take that back. Let me take it back. Polio was a result. Sorry, polio was a result of the DDT. DDT sprays.
All right.
So they sprayed a lot with DDT in the 1940s and the 1950s in the United States, and they sprayed DDT quite a bit in Jamaica during the 1950s and 60s, I believe. I had a good friend of mine who's now passed who participated in those programs.
Okay.
And so polio is a result of again toxic environmental poison.
But this doesn't matter to these demons though, because what we hear from Gates is that this was a discussion with Donald Trump, and this is the way we're going. So he's looking at food security, which is how to make food from anything, and to control what people eat, when they eat, and how they eat. This is basically what he's and remember, he went off and bought farms all over the world during COVID. Yep. He sold everything and bought farms. He's not even going to farming properly. He's going to be using GMO and all kind of
the real thing is not the farm. It's to shut down. It's to take the properties off of market.
Well, there you go.
So people don't have it.
I didn't even think of that.
So, so basically, so people don't have access to food during. So again, you control food, you control the people.
Because this is what he's saying, he says that this is a meeting, they're discussing food security, they're discussing HIV, they're discussing polio. And he's pointing to the Middle East, Afghanistan, and Africa. Of course, he threw Africa in there. So there's some concerns because they've done this before. And we watched it in slow motion. They locked down the world for 2 years, and people participated in that. And so we know that they can do it again. They already know that they can do this again. Kwame, let me take a quick break, and I want to come back and talk about because I'm getting lots of messages from our listeners to say have that discussion around DEI. So let me take a break and come back.
Oh yeah, that's an in-depth discussion. Yes.
President of the United States, Donald Trump, was roll back DEI and everything around that. So lots of firings, lots of closing down of agencies and departments, and lots of people out on their faces. What do you make of all of that? And what in heaven's name is DEI?
DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's just a rebrand of affirmative action, right? Affirmative action was initially done by the Nixon administration with prodding from Republican businessmen associated with the Harvard Business School, right? So that was their way of one, Nixon wanted to peel off blacks away from the Democratic Party in 1968. Two, it was also a way to mollify black people in the wake of all the riots and rebellions in the late 60s. So the Nixon administration aggressively promoted affirmative action. In fact, they had to get the civil rights organizations on board for affirmative action because they were skeptical of it at first, right? And then we moved to the Carter administration, where again, and Nixon awarded a lot of contracts to quote unquote minority contractors, and then the Carter administration started doing the same. But then the definition of minority shifted to include women, meaning white women. So if you look at the history of affirmative action, the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action are white women, not black men, not black women, not Hispanics, so on and so forth. And I have a friend who's a contractor in Texas, and he says that if DEI or affirmative action worked, he'd be getting more contracts, right?
But we wouldn't have thought that looking on from Jamaica and I think other parts of the Caribbean. We wouldn't have thought that. We always, and I know the go-to is that affirmative action is for black people.
No. The benefit, you can look up the stats. The biggest benefit, and people do your research, look up the stats who the biggest, and we're doing a statistical-based discussion. This is not an emotional discussion. A statistical-based discussion that the biggest beneficiaries from affirmative action and DEI are white women, period. But same friend and I had a discussion 5 years ago during COVID when they were starting to bring up the whole DEI thing and doing the whole black girl magic thing. And we said that black people have historical amnesia because black men were the face of affirmative action in the 70s and 80s. And I saw affirmative action go away. I mean, I saw that with the Bakke case where they got rid of the quotas for the school. I saw municipal contracts being revoked from black people through all these lawsuits. I saw a decrease in the number of black students personally when I was in college or before I got to college in terms of percentages at the universities. And then even we saw Reagan's attack on affirmative action. We saw Clinton's only tacit support of affirmative action. We saw Obama's very weak support of affirmative action. So Trump's executive order is basically a final nail in the coffin that's been hammered in from the end of the Carter administration to Reagan to Bush to Clinton to Obama to Biden. And in fact, the Biden administration there was a case the other day in November where the Biden administration said they were there was a case where minority contractors were opposed. A case was brought up where they opposed black or minority contractors getting awarded contracts, and the Biden administration decided to stand down. There was a ruling from the Small Business Administration basically saying that awarding contracts minority contractors was discrimination.
It's interesting because it reminds me of this, what they call BAME in the UK, which is once you get into that whole idea of BAME, including Asians and Indians and so-called minorities, that the most affected group were black British people who were literally left out of this, and the beneficiaries were everybody else, the Asians, the minorities, et cetera, et cetera. So it was literally hijacked.
Let's get into preferences, though. Preferences happen all the time. Veterans get preferences to be hired in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Senior citizens get discounts, right? People who go through disasters get discounts. And let's really talk about how the corporate world works.
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell you that you need a college degree for certain positions, but I've worked in departments where white employees have no college degree and they get hired.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in a situation where I tried to get a friend in an apartment, one of my departments hired. She had the highest test score to get in that department, and she didn't get hired because an Indian fellow whose brother-in-law worked in the department, who had no experience in the area of expertise what the department required, was able to get in because he had access to the test score.
Mm-hmm. Kwame, I'm running out of time. I'm running out of time.
This goes on all the time.
Yeah, I want to go to the immigration, but just to wrap this up. So you're saying that for DEI, and that was a process that was in train for many presidents down the line, and the final nail in the coffin put in by Trump. So you're saying Black America isn't necessarily going to lose out on him rescinding this whole thing, and
well, as compare, well, no, some Black people are going to be affected because remember, as I said, Black women are now the boogeyman for DEI, as Black men were the boogeyman for affirmative action. So the visceral part is that those Black women who are deemed to be DEI hires are going to be punished because they're the most visible and most different, right? It's harder to punish a white woman.
And we see that happening already.
The white woman will.
Go ahead.
But at the same time, the contracts for those white women are going to disappear. But that's now going to be an internal family fight at the dinner table between the wife and the husband over this whole DEI thing. And the wife is going to say, "Hey, you're messing up our gig here," you know. But in terms of like lopping off heads and parting the visceral term for it, yeah, the Black women's heads are the easiest ones to lop off because they're the most different of that crowd.
So there obviously has to be a different answer, another solution, and Black people are going to have to come up with these solutions.
The solution, back again, is controlling our own economies, which we attempted to do and did it very successfully in the early 20th century. The trick is, how do we protect our communities and our neighborhoods where we control our economies from, one, overt violence, and two, from political violence, where they, for instance, will redistrict your they'll rezone your district, the Black business district. They'll not give you tax subsidies. They will reroute roads so you can't have customers. This has all been done. Or they'll run expressways through the Black business district. So how do we protect ourselves as a people when we choose to build up our own economies? I have some ideas about that, and that includes Pan-Africanism. But that's another discussion. I don't think I should say everything in public about that.
All right, and we'll definitely invite you back to kind of just do the bullet points of it, a précis, if you will. But let's just move now, Kwame, to immigration, finally, with the few minutes we have. Already, we see the massive planes. Mexico refused planes, I think, heading to Latin America, landing in their country. And it seems to me as if Caribbean countries are already being impacted by this. What are you seeing?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and that, I know the initial things are they say they're going after the criminals, and then if they happen to see anybody in the home that had been already deported, they're going to throw that person out as well. We all know that a lot of the immigrants are as a result of the U.S. interference in the Western Hemisphere and the U.S. wars abroad, and they come in there. They come in for that reason. Number two, illegal immigration was encouraged to reduce the inflation rate, quiet as it's kept. But the Fed did admit that in one of their papers back in the summer, right? And so basically now with the Trump's America First program, the people who are deemed to be criminals are going to be deported. However, he's not. I don't think he's going to deport all the illegal immigrants or even people whose status were immediately changed from illegal to illegal by the Biden administration, because this affects his own funders. For instance, the Haitians in Ohio are heavily employed by the automotive industry in that area, and I think it's been made clear. Even Trump has made it clear that those Haitians will not be deported. Because of those companies' dependence on them, and again, because one, they're hard workers, two, they're technically proficient, and you have a lot of drug abuse among the local population that makes them unable to work in the plant. And again, I've experienced this personally when I've been at plants in the South, right? So this is not in terms of the drug problem. And so, he's going to deport some of the illegals to satisfy his supporters. That's illegal immigrants to satisfy his supporters who have criminal backgrounds. But not all the illegal immigrants will be deported, because of the U.S. farming industry is dependent on illegal immigrants, and the U.S. manufacturing industry and the U.S. meatpacking industry is dependent on illegal immigrants.
So there is
and the U.S.
Go ahead.
And the construction industry is dependent on illegal immigrants.
So this is appearances to the mind, things appearing to be, but they're not. And this is why I'm saying smoke and mirrors, look there, look here, look everywhere, everything happening everywhere all at once. And this big noise over immigration. But what's the substance? And I think the point you made earlier to sit back and watch, because a lot of this is really just smoke and mirrors.
Yes, exactly. It's they said, it's chaos. You know, Kemetic term is APAP. Is APAP for chaos.
Yes,
which is it just get to a little spiritual discussion here. APAP was considered the worst of the worst, more of anything in Kemet.
Well, Elon Musk has renamed himself Kek, and we know Kek in Kemet is also the god of chaos, if you will.
Exactly.
So he's calling himself Kekimus, something or the other, Mus. That's an aside. Yeah.
And then remember, Ra. I'm reading the Book of Gates right now, and Ra requires humanity to get rid of chaos.
Well,
that is our purpose on Earth. So, but again, but also chaos leads to another order. Right, so we're going to a new order of the world. That not the order that out of chaos comes order that the powers that be want. But I think we're headed to a new age where the people who have controlled the world for the past 2,000 years, their reign is over. So the age of the Romans is ending.
Yeah. Finally, because we did say finally before, and we're over 8, it's a minute after 8, but I can't let you go without having a quick look at this, because we talk about immigration, but also, so I was in the summit for the WEF summit, and Trump was beamed in. And I don't know if you've seen that speech where he spoke directly to Saudi Arabia and just... was very glowing.
Yes. I saw that too.
Right.
I have to smile at that. He wants Saudi Arabia to lower the oil prices, right? But Saudi Arabia needs the high oil prices to fund their infrastructure projects within Saudi Arabia. Number two, if they lower the oil prices too much, it destroys the shale industry, which Saudi Arabia would love to see. The shale oil industry in the United States, which Saudi Arabia would love to see happen, so they can, again, raise their prices again. So I think, again, Trump is barking up a position where he's trying to appear he's coming in from a position of strength, and really he has the world has changed in the past 4 years since he left office, greatly in the past 4 years, and the leverage that he has over the Saudis is not what they once had, what the U.S. once had.
Let us see how this play out in the region, especially with what they're now saying about Palestine, about Gaza, about that entire area. Let us see what the...
And one other thing I have to say, what people in the Caribbean region have to be careful of is that, again, the U.S. is going to cede Eurasia to control the Western Hemisphere. So basically, the Caribbean is going to be under the thumb. So what are going to be the response of the people to take matters into their own hands, because the governments are not going to take those matters into their own hands to create some sort of economic independence.
And this is critical. We have our brother Ajamu coming on in a little while, later on this morning at 8:35. And we'll take that aspect of the conversation, the discussion, up with him as we look at where we are here on the island, what are our challenges, and not just Jamaica but Caribbean-wide. We definitely have some serious challenges in this whole geopolitical bowl. But thank you so much, Kwame Pianke, geopolitical analyst, Pan-African scholar, and engineer, as usual, my brother. Very enlightening discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, too. Okay, bye-bye.
All right, Kwame Pianke there. We are still very concerned about what we see happening around us. Many issues that we're going to be focusing on this morning. Let me quickly look at some of what we see happening in the United Kingdom, because you might have heard by now, and you probably are, peripherally seeing the newscast mentioning the young man originally his parents from Rwanda, being sentenced to 50-odd years in prison. The UK Guardian, and thank you so much, my sister friend in the UK, Dawn Eaton, who sent me some of the media reports that we're not necessarily getting with the BBC World Service and Sky News and those world media, so-called mainstream media. The UK Guardian did a brilliant article on this young man, looking at, and I say brilliant because what they did was to look at how he got to, from being what some were calling a choir boy, to a murderer. And in between all of this is mental health. And they made a point of pointing out that he was a young kid who was a young boy who was, between 8, 9, 10, was just happy, just friendly, just a normal young man. And then somewhere in his early preteens, he went home and told his parents that he was being bullied and people were being racist against him. And I noted that. It brought me to Professor Fred Hickling's work. And we have to look at that again, because in England, a lot of our young boys in school find themselves just around 11, 12, being subjected to the worst kinds of racist bullying in the schoolroom, on the roads, just in their normal, where they breathe racism. And so that there are too many young boys in England who are going through this without being properly attended to. But that report in the UK Guardian literally laid bare how many times the system failed this young man. He even tried to get them to arrest him, to help him at one time. And this is a story from the UK Guardian. How many? I'm talking about numerous times. And the system failed him every time. Started with bullying, continued with bullying until he lost himself. No, it was very clear from that article and some other reporting that this young man, his name is Alex Ruda Kubana. He's a young man who was found guilty of killing the young girls who were having that Taylor Swift theme dance class. And it turns out that this is a young man, and I'm not excusing any murder, any killing, nothing at all. But what is surprising to me is the extent to which we're hearing now from the UK Guardian that this young man had serious mental health issues, very, very serious issues, and the system failed him every step of the way. And yet, even in court, he was still sentenced to 52 or 50 odd years in prison. And if you see some of the reporting coming out of the UK, they're also calling for the death penalty for him. But the mental health concerns, those underlying issues, were never dealt with. And it started all the way from this young man who was about 10, 11. Had gone home to his parents to say, I'm being bullied. And he stopped going to school. He locked himself in his room. He refused to go out. He refused to socialize, just hiding away from racism. Now, I want to say something to you. I am personally aware of scores of young men like that in Britain who, at around 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and especially in those teenage years, start locking them, black boys start locking themselves away from racism. If this is not dealt with in Britain, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I think if you're Jamaican and you have your young boys growing up in the UK, I'm not prescribing anything, but goodness gracious, we need to come home. This is basically what it is. We need to come home. And I remember in the mid-90s that there were lots of Jamaicans who were living in Britain from ages ago who came back to the Caribbean, to Jamaica, to Trinidad, to Antigua, to Barbados, went home for the sake of their children, especially the young boys. So, on the one hand, we have this vicious murder of these 3 young girls, and on the other hand, we have a young man who carried out these vicious acts with a serious mental health condition, whose mental health was not considered in his trial because black people are not considered, read Professor Hicklin's work, are not considered human enough to have a defense of mental health issues, psychiatric issues. And this happened twice in 2 weeks or a week in the UK because Devica Rose, who left her 4 children, 2 sets of twins, in a house in the UK, and they were locked up there. A fire started, and what a tragedy that those 4 young boys, really nice, just looking at them, were killed in that fire. They were found under the bed. Really such a tragedy, and we remember how outraged we were. It turned out also that she had a mental health condition. As a matter of fact, the reporting on that says that while she was in court, she wasn't even listening to anybody. She was just rocking and humming, and even when the sentence was given. And yet she was sentenced to prison. And we have a white nurse, I can't remember her name, who was found guilty of killing babies in the UK. And this is just the other day. And there is a movement, there's an entire movement in Britain to free that woman. This is the extent of racism It is what it looks like. It is what it feels like. Because if you read Professor Hickling's work, and I go back to that, it is a system that breeds the mental health conditions among black people for the most part. It's a system. It's a racist, oppressive system that is Britain that breeds a mental health condition. And focusing on Portugal and Spain and on Europe, and they tell you how many flights coming in. One of the most racist countries in the world, if not the most racist country, is Spain. I hope you know that. And so Jamaica is wooing Spain, and we are focusing on plantation tourism. I want to make an appeal to the government and to the government. If we continue down this road of plantation tourism in a time when in America they're saying America first, in Germany the far right is rising, and we don't like those terms, but we use them for now, where everybody's getting more conservative, looking inwards. People are talking about nation building. Immigration is a pariah. People are locking their borders. Foreigners are not wanted. We see in the U.S. where even Native Americans, who are the original indigenous people of America, are being told that they must now walk with their birth certificates and their identification because they are being rounded up and put in detention to be sent to we don't know where, because people are just being rounded up like that. People from Puerto Rico. So if you look different. And so this is a world that we're inhabiting. This is the space as it is right now. But yet Jamaica is focused on plantation tourism that includes giving away land, giving away indigenous land, giving away our beaches and our rivers. One of the sessions at the World Economic Forum last week was about water, and it was entitled "Water as One of the Main Resources Going into the Future." And they pressed and impressed upon people how important it was to protect your water sources. Here in Jamaica, they know what's coming. They know what they're talking about. Here in Jamaica, we are giving away our water sources. We're giving away our land. We're selling everything. Even the people have been sold. The Minister of Tourism in a speech recently referred to the Jamaican people as commodity. This is what you need to remember. This is where we are. It is servitude. It is servitude. They have named us and labeled us a country of Jamaica is a service industry. Serving who? That's prostitution. So we're losing the land, we're losing the waterway, we're losing the rivers. And at the same time, others are looking inward, protecting themselves, talking about water security, talking about food security. At what point do we say to ourselves, we have to protect ourselves, protect our land, and protect our water sources for ourselves and for our children and their children? So we've lost almost everything in terms of the coastline. It's all gone. It's almost all gone. But not enough of us care about this. I hear a lot of talk about Marcus Garvey being pardoned, and I see the hypocrisy in Parliament. I see people on both sides of the House getting up and talking about why this is such a good thing and what it means for Jamaica. But as we speak, the land that Marcus Mosiah Garvey's parents were and grandparents were enslaved on, that is a Roaring River property, that as we speak at this minute, if you go there now, there are bulldozers digging down the land because that land has been given to China, including the water source. And the government of Jamaica, and these hypocrites you see standing up in Parliament, talking about how great it is that the United States pardoned Marcus Mosiah Garvey, have no consideration or thought for their own hypocrisy, the extent to which they have given away the land that has the blood, sweat, and tears of Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey's parents and grandparents. Marcus Garvey and his wife wrote about how he loved sitting by the roaring river. This is where he wrote a lot of his poetry. This is where he spent most of his time. As a matter of fact, there was a school of thought that the house on Market Street is not necessarily where he was born, and we have to answer that question, that he was likely born on the Roaring River property. And these hypocrites in Parliament are spending their time shifting the narrative, talking about how great it is that Marcus Garvey was pardoned. Then wait. And how it is a process. And now there's going to be exoneration. And after that, there's going to be expungement. Go away with your foolishness. Who you think you're fooling? Donald Trump has said that everyone who was pardoned by Joe Biden are criminals. And this is the basket of undesirables that we have put Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey in. He didn't need to be pardoned. He didn't do anything wrong. We hold on to that. If you want to do something for Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey, if you want to really do something for him, halt the digging down of the property on which his parents were enslaved here in Jamaica. Halt the changing of the water course of the roaring river that you have given to China, that China has now the right, Jabem tells us, they have seen the document, the right to change the water course of the roaring river. Halt the cutting down of trees in the watershed area that Jamaica will suffer from here all the way back to Clarendon. We did those interviews. We have seen the research. We have seen the environmental research. We have seen the environmental impact studies. We know that once you do this, the people from here to Trelawney all the way back to Clarendon will be impacted, but you have given that river away. The same river that Marcus Garvey's wife wrote about, that he loved to sit by the roaring river and just to meditate and write his poetry. Who you think you're fooling? Who exactly you think you're fooling? This is no time for joke. This requires some plain speaking. And for the sake of Jamaica, let us speak plainly. You are hypocrites and parasites. The President has made that call for a full audit of funding to Ukraine. That I'd like to see. There's also a call for the release of the Epstein documents. Well, I'd like to see it too. Okay. And lots of talk about the MLK and the JFK and all of those documents. All of those are really, this is part of the whole PSYOP. It's a smoke and mirrors. It's a game that they're playing. Look over this, look over this, look over this, but don't look at this right here. So basically we're saying, let's look at ourselves. Let's look at where we are. Let's look at how we go from here. We are on our own, reshaping the future of Africa and the Caribbean for our children. That is the job that we have. So even though we saw this pompous and spectacular inauguration ceremony, which ushered in the next phase of the Great Reset and the PSYOP, do not be carried away by this. If you're into numerology, then it's 9/11. 45th president, numerological 9, second, 47th president, 11, 9/11. You know how it is. These politicians who are wrapped up in bed with gangsters and dons and gunmen and killers, they don't have the moral authority to say anything to us. And unless we get to the point where we are not afraid to call them out, unless we get to the point where we say enough is enough, then we're going to continue to watch our country burn. This is where we are. The appeal that I was making was to this, I don't even know why we appeal. We need to appeal to ourselves, because sometimes we make these appeals to them, and it's such a conundrum, because why are we appealing to them when we don't know, say, who them be? So we need to appeal to ourselves to reject plantation tourism, to reject what Ed Bartlett and Delano Seavright and them are overseeing on this island. We need to reject it outright. There has to come a point, if we don't reject it, we are going to die. It is simple as it is. Whether it is of starvation for food because we don't have no land for plant, or it be of thirst because we don't have no water sources. Either way, we're going to die. To be Dr. Ajamo, and we're just talking online, so I know that he's standing by. Not quite sure what happened, why we can't get through to him, but we're standing by for that. In the meantime, you know that people, there are a lot of stuff happening now because people are talking about the end times, the end of the world, revelation, biblical this, prophecy that, and they're making some of it come true because it has to fit a template, it has to fit what they wanted, it has to fit the design. And so in Texas, and this is pretty serious, in Texas, a North Texas neighborhood, a man was frightened, or people were frightened by a man wearing a satanic mask while he was carrying a sign depicting the apocalypse. And we understand that these are, okay, I'm going to come back to this story because I do think we have our next guest. But we understand that these people who were being harassed were actually a black family. We have that clip, and I'll take it to you later if we can, as so many around us try to make this thing happen. You know, you have the prophecy has to be fulfilled, so you have to move the people from Gaza, and you have to rebuild the third temple of Solomon, that kind of thing. So this is what's happening all around the world right now. Okay, we're back with you and online, Dr. Ajamu, my brother. We're going to be looking at things Jamaica right now. All the time. Very happy to have him online. Dr. Ajamu Nagwaya. He holds a PhD in adult education and community development from the University of Toronto. He's a former cultural and Rastafari studies lecturer at the University of the West Indies, Mona. He's currently a working member at Mukasa Farms, an eco-retreat in Westmoreland. He's editor of 3 anthologies with Adwa Nura and Anna Perkins. Rough Riding, Tanya Stevens and the Power of Music to Change Society with Kale Okuno, Jackson Rising. And one of the things that Brother Ajamu has said to us that resonates with us all the time, he says he's a class traitor, we love it, who responded to the call of our ancestors Amilcar Cabral and Walter Rodney for the revolutionary petty bourgeois elements to commit class suicide and become one with the working class. He is taught at the post-secondary level in Canada and Jamaica. He's on the line. He's a farmer. Greetings, my brother Ajamu.
Yeah, greetings, Sister Kabu. How are you doing?
I am well if you two are well.
Yeah, man, I'm all right. It's always nice to know up on the farm, you know. That's why I'm not trying to encourage the working class in Jamaica to go back to the land. Mm-hmm. Because there are benefits, health benefits, different types of benefits from our association with the land. We came here because of the land, but for the capitalist class. Mm-hmm. So it's great. And give thanks for bringing it on so we can reason on what go on in this country.
Yes. And I want to start right there because before we get pointedly into the meat of the matter, is to look at what's happening generally in Jamaica. One of the things that Kwame referenced earlier was, what do we do with the knowledge or the knowing that we have? Where do we go from here? And how do we look specifically at our own situation as a nation, as community, and as families? Your take, and I know you heard Kwame following up on that. Yes.
Yes. Well, fundamentally, you know, it's all about organizing. Kwame Ture, or more popularly or widely known as Stokely Carmichael, told us that organization is the weapon of the oppressed. And it truly is a weapon of the oppressed, because we cannot resist oppressive conditions without being in organization. But when he talks about organization, he's also talking about a method of resistance. What we're mostly doing today is mobilizing, and it is a method of resistance. So we react to oppressive conditions or an incident that may take place, and then we sit back down. But organizing and mobilizing is not a good strategy to resist, because it's reactive and it's media driven. It becomes a media spectacle. For example, Black Lives Matter, they were mobilizing people, but not only is it problematic in terms of the reactive nature of the mobilizing method of resistance, but it's also elite driven. Is that it's very much dependent on leaders leading the people, as opposed to the organizing method of resistance. But in addition to that, when we mobilize, we don't really build the capacity of the people to control their own destiny. It's, as I would say, it's very much having the people as props and extras on the stage of history, as opposed to them being the main actors on the stage of history, forging their way forward. So the only option to me is the organizing method of resistance. And with organizing, it means that we must have organizations. Mm-hmm. One of the challenges that I find in Jamaica is how difficult it is to build organizations, sustainable organizations, and also to attract people to the idea that we must work 24/7 in organizations to move our struggle forward. Mm-hmm. That is why I find people are so attracted to cultural events. They will go and say, okay, Rebel Salute is the place, and they go on profile. Mm-hmm. They wear the African clothing and everything. But we say, let's get an organization so that we can 24/7 organize in working class communities. For example, in Jamaica, let's show the limited number of organizations that we have. It's social worker and social services workers that are interfacing with oppressed people in working class communities and ghettos, you call them inner cities now. Mm-hmm. They are the ones doing it, but not we, the radicals and revolutionaries. We're not in organization, mobilizing people, mobilizing other resources, doing political education, but most importantly, organizing programs, projects, and building alternative institutions. So it all starts with that.
What do you think is the reason for this? Because I've heard you say this time and time again, that this is one of the issues, the problems with us here in Jamaica. Let me take a quick break, and we can look at what could be some of the reasons for that and how to break that apathy. Let me take the two brothers, Jawari and brother Kheru, who, and it took such a long time to get the Mother Samar division of the UNIA off the ground here. And I know these two brothers working really hard behind the scenes, but even for them it was such a struggle. What do you think is the reason for this?
No, it's a number of things, and I should say that the prejudice towards mobilizing method of resistance is global. Same thing happening in the United States, in Canada. It's easier. It's a spectacle. You go to a demonstration, you blow off steam, burning down Babylon, and you go back home and just enjoy your Netflix movies and other cultural products from the enemy. Mm-hmm. It's easier. Mm-hmm. Organizing is hard work. It's 24/7 work. Mm-hmm. We're already have to work in excessive amount of hours, those of us who have jobs. So we do not have enough, and we're raising children in a context where social programs have been cut by the capitalist class and the capitalist state. So we are making up when it comes to health care, when it comes to caring for the elderly, when it comes to, a range of other things that social programs will have stepped in and helped. No, we have to be digging into our pockets to finance works that finance services that really should be provided by the national government through social programs and social and income support programs. Mm-hmm. That is part of the neoliberal capitalist agenda to keep us so busy we have no time to engage in struggles. When we look at students and the shift away from strong, consistent student activism, it's because now they have to work. UNIA at one point used to receive 80% of its budget from the state. Now it's receiving 40%. It means that they have to increase tuition. So students can't take risks like going to jail because of activism, because they have siblings who are coming up behind them that they have to finance them. They have elderly parents they have to take care of. We do not have the time to engage in struggle. And those who do are usually burnout because they're doing more work than they should be doing. So it's a very complex thing, but it is still possible.
It's possible. And it's necessary to move to the next level, you're saying. I hear you. We have no option. One of the things, too, is that the system is weaponized against us for those who stick them head out. But, I'm going through my own particular situation now where they've weaponized the entire financial system against me. So, right. and I shudder to think how people, who stick them head out to organize, if you will, are being literally cut down. But there's another element, though, because there is international funding, and the funding industrial complex is a massive business. But we see where they're organized, where there seems to be people who are properly organized, that the funding is what drives that. And I'm not sure, well, I'm pretty sure because I've been in a lot of those spaces where that funding prevents you from really doing the work. It is all about posturing, writing a paper here and there, but never, ever going too hard out for change.
No, Sister, that's a very good point, observation. Before I touch it, let's go to the earlier thing about the targeting of activists. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we must realize that once you embrace the path of revolution or radicalism, it is going to create martyrs. It's going to create political prisoners. It's going to create people who are physically and psychologically harmed by the oppressors. That's a given. Mm-hmm. When we sign up for radicalism, we actually sign our death warrant, our death certificate. So we are always the walking dead when you embrace the path of revolutions. It's when they decide to execute the death warrant against us. So we're not thieves, we're not bullied, we're not afraid of that because we know what we sign up for. Many people, when they embrace activism, don't realize that you're likely to be killed or imprisoned or you're maligned or they impose economic sanctions when you see you can't even get jobs to take care of your social and economic responsibilities. Mm-hmm. But we still persist. Mm-hmm. We can look at even Hamas and Islamic Jihad, and we see the exchange of captives going on. The people in Palestine are still resisting. Over 14 months of attack, savage, brutal attack on the Palestinian people, and they're still resisting. And people say Hamas and Islamic Jihad are saying victory to survive one of the most sophisticated military infrastructure in terms of apartheid Israel. To survive 15 months of killing is in itself victory. And that's why they're proclaiming victory. So that is part of it. But part of the sustaining of social work or social services work or non-profit work is coming from the non-profit industrial complex where governments, foundations are financing social work, but it's not social work for revolution. It's social work to better our condition to accept the oppressive state that we're living in. So that is what we see going on. It's very deliberate. Mm-hmm. Those of us who are doing radical work, organizing the people for emancipation, we're doing it out of our own pocket. I remember being
let us talk. Sorry, go ahead.
And just being a part of a union where we have union dues to do the work. It was so different from doing community activism where if we go to the airport, we pay for our own gas, we dip into our pocket to bring a speaker in to speak. When you're in the union movement, you get mileage reimbursement. All of these things, I'm thinking, my gosh, it make activism so easy when we have the resources, but we can do it. Mm-hmm. We can do independent. The Garvey movement finance itself. Mm-hmm. Any serious liberation movement will generate its income from within its own ranks and from sympathetic supporters and allies and those things. Yeah. We can do it, but there's a way and we can reason about that.
I want to reason about the way, and before we get to the way, so you talk about, and the term you use now, it jumped out at me, organizing for emancipation, activism for emancipation. What does emancipation look like? What does that mean?
First of all, emancipation means that our emancipation project must focus on multi-oppression. We can't just focus on racial exploitation, racial oppression of African people. We must also look at capitalist economic exploitation of the African working class. Because we may be all Africans, but the petty bourgeois, the bourgeois element, the capitalist class element among us are our enemies. They are committed to exploiting us. But what they may be concerned about is that non-African capitalists are outcompeting them, so they will use race to appeal to us and say, we're all one. It's like in the early record industry, and still is. When Africans are competing against Chinese and Syrian, Lebanese record producers, they're using race. Oh, let's do it for the brother man. But they were just as exploitative after reggae artists, the rocksteady artists, as Asian and Chinese capitalists, but they use race to say we're all in this together. And this has been used all over the world in terms of race, ethnic loyalty used to appeal to the working class while the capitalist is competing against capitalists from another racialized or ethnic group. So this is nothing new. We also must be committed to fighting and ending patriarchy. There is no racial emancipation without also working against sexism. And same thing with ageism, same thing with oppression of queer people. We are not leaving anybody behind in our emancipation project. So when we talk about emancipation, we're talking about all of those who are oppressed. We'll come under the banner of freedom. So we can't, because as Martin Luther King said, that freedom is indivisible. You can't fight for a little piece of freedom here, but you're supporting oppression over there.
To what extent, with all the organizing and so on, can this be achieved without land ownership, owning land? To what extent is land tied to independence, to emancipation?
In the Jamaican context, it's a critical part of it, because even if we're taking our basic level, if we're going to build organization and we need headquarters or sites for work, we have to have land base for that. But in terms of economic development, we're going to need land on which to carry out economic development projects, whether it's industrial, agricultural, or service. It's a critical part of that. And that is why when we're talking about reparatory justice in Jamaica, we must look at the capitalist state, the neo-colonial dependent capitalist state that inherited power from British colonialism, and demand land reform in this country so we can get access to it. I'm someone living in a rural area, and when I look around, I see a great degree of land hunger among the people. You have small farmers going on virtually abandoned sugar estate, in terms of abandoned from producing cane. And on the margin, they're planting cash crops on it. Not fruit trees, another thing, something where they chase you off the land, you can leave and go away. I see people living in almost tenement-type settlement. It may be family land, an acre and a half, and you probably have 60 people living. Everybody come build a little room. So there's land hunger for housing construction. There's land hunger for economic development among the working class. Are the laboring class, the sufferers in this country. So we must demand land reform, accessing land by the sufferers under the reparative justice platform. The reason why we're not seeing it is because the petty bourgeois people on the reparations commission, they're urban-based. They're not seeing the need for land reform. Remember, in the 1938 labor rebellion in Jamaica, it started May the 2nd and went into early June. The rural workers held out longer than the urban-based, Kingston-based strikers because they wanted land. They weren't satisfied with us having better wages. They wanted land. Land has been a long-standing issue among us. When we were emancipated, or won our emancipation in 1838, we organized with the Baptist Church to buy land because we saw that as important. But not only that, we went up into the interior, in the mountainous area, and captured government land, crown land they call it, to build communities. Land is very, very crucial, and we need it now. One of the interesting things that's going on, even though I'm saying that we need land, the government of Jamaica is committed, and for rational, good reasons, to concentrate in the Jamaican population in urban centers, because when we're scattered all over, it's more expensive for government to deliver social services, social programs to the people because we're all over the place. If you concentrate us, you can deliver health care, you can deliver transportation much cheaper than when we're scattered all over the place. So I see the rational basis for that. But at the same time, if we're committed to food security, we must commit ourselves to building rural communities where people can live. And if we build intentional communities, 30, 40 of us could move into a rural community and start to build, and that can attract people into the rural area. So in some ways we can have concentrated population, but it's in the rural area, not in those rural towns, but out to where people say the deep bush, or even up in the mountains, like what we see happen among the Bubble Dreads in Bull Bay, or we see with the School of Vision on the Blue Mountains, where we retreat So land is very important, and we must demand from these reparations advocates, same claiming that they represent the sufferers, that they push land reform, because the government of Jamaica is the largest landowner in Jamaica. They can effect land reform. But when they do land reform, we don't want them to reinforce the capitalist idea of private ownership. We want them to go back to the African idea that land belongs to the future generation. We can't own it. We have a right of use.
Communal land.
If I need to use it for 45 years, the community says, okay, I have it. When I don't need it, then it goes back to the community. If my child needs it...
Hold a sec for me. Sorry to interrupt. Hold a sec.
No problem.
You didn't know that Jamaica's unemployment rate is at its lowest ever? Yes, so more Jamaica.
We're slated to speak with our sister, Jackie Frank. She's in the UK. We're trying to get her. We're not able to get her online, but we're still trying, because there is a breaking news regarding that. But as you talk about, land owned communally, this was a situation in Barbuda until the elections until the Irma, the hurricane, in 2017, and we see what Gaston Brown and them from Antigua has done to these people on Barbuda. So that there has to be, even when the laws are in place, we see in Antigua they went on the books and they changed the laws to give the land to the capitalists. So we see them building an airport and all of that in Barbuda. Now, you said earlier, you talk about food security, and I want to throw in water security. How important are those, and how do we begin to achieve those? Obviously, not without land, but all things taken as you just outlined. How do we achieve this?
Food security is national security. We remember in 1970 when American imperialism, in reaction to Jamaica supporting Cuban troops going to Angola to check aggressive South African apartheid, they punished Jamaica. They almost starved us to the point where we start to marry food. You want a pound of flour, you have to buy a roll of toilet paper. You don't want a toilet paper. Because worse comes to worse, you can use some paper. But you have to buy a non-essential thing with the scarce thing. It was deliberate. The local capitalists also had food in warehouse where they were holding on to it because they wanted to blame the so-called socialist administration of Michael Mann for starving the people. They weaponized food. In Venezuela, in its conflict with American imperialism, they start to put the screw into Venezuela by halting food going to Venezuela, knowing that they can punish people. Many Venezuelans had to run out of the country because they couldn't get food. Food is a weapon. So when I advocate for food self-sufficiency, which means that essentially you provide most of the food and that you eat. But for me as a Caribbeanist, I look at food security in a regional context. So, because some territories may not be able to produce all the food that they want, but their brothers and sister territories can do it, and we work together in providing our needs. So food security is very, very important. It's a political thing, and never again but we are truly put ourselves in a position where American imperialism or any imperialist power can put pressure on us because through the food weapon. Water is very critical. We don't have a water problem in Jamaica. We have a water management, a water utilization problem. How we use water, how we store it. Yes. We get too much rain in this country for us to have a water problem. So what we have to start to do, we have to engage in rainwater harvesting. We have to rethink how we use water.
Yes.
Why do we use water to flush away urine and feces when we can harvest the urine and use it as fertilizer in our agricultural program all across this country? I don't waste my urine. I save it and I use it on the farm. Why are we washing away feces when we can capture our feces, recycle it, and use it on our fruit trees as fertilizer? So there, we're cutting out a large wastage of water, but also the water coming from the heavens. We should be trapping it in ponds, in tanks, and so that during the dry season, we have water. But remember, when Columbus came here, they saw Jamaica as a land of wood and water. We have to plant more trees. We have to plant millions of trees across this country and across the region. It has to be a regional strategy so that the Caribbean itself becomes like an eco climate where we can start to generate more rainfall across the Caribbean region, and not just the Caribbean region, but we'll start to do it in Latin America, or Central America and South America, so that we can have steady rainfall. And then it's a global initiative in terms of trees. So we need water, because right now we're having a water crisis across the country, even just in my neck of the woods, that we're saying, damn, are we going to get rain ever? It's like,
it's getting more critical, because one of the things, not quite sure what's happening where you are, Brother Ajam, but where we are on this side of the world, most of the rivers that we had access to have been privatized. The water holes, the water sources, the rivers, and now there is a massive situation. As I speak to you right now, the Roaring River is the course of the Roaring River is being changed, because the government has given all those watershed area to China, and the dump up truck and the bulldozers are there right now. People who are passing there will be seeing this right now. So this is where we are. So on the one hand, the water management, as you said, is poor. We have so much rainfall, but we're not storing the water. But another thing is that we have now given away a lot of the watershed areas. We're building hotels there, and also the water sources. How does that, and how do you think this will blow back on any conversation that we're going to be having about food security? Because without water, there really isn't anything.
No, it's negative consequences for their approach to how they're using water, selling off, privatizing the commons in terms of accessing water resource. Earlier in the program, you critiqued plantation tourism. I firebomb that. I call that sea, sand, and sex tourism that is mostly concentrated in the coastal area. That is destroying the very attraction, the beaches, the environment that attract people to Jamaica. We're destroying it through the plantation tourism that we're engaged in. Tourism is an intense, heavy user of water, wasteful. So when we're talking about expanding tourism, and that's what I mean, even in Western Jamaica, last year when they had the water crisis, it's because they didn't plan for the expansion of tourism, and and it's affecting sufferers, because last year it was about 7 months. There's no water in the pipes. I was shocked, because I'm dependent on harvesting rainwater, like I'm off the grid. I had no idea that people in the community didn't have water, because I'm up in the mountain and we're using water from the heavens, And I'm like, this makes no sense for people to be buying water. So all along these rural roads, you see trucks going, and they're just milking the spring in our community. But and trucks were lined up trying to get water to bring to the hotel. So the model of tourism is a problem. And if we're talking about tourism, we have to embrace ecotourism that bring people into the interior, them experience life. It's not about sea, sand, sex, and sun. It's about enjoying and experience the flowers and the people, the animals that are here. They live in normal lives as tourists. So I know when tourists come, they're escaping the brutal nature of capitalist life in the centers of imperialism in North America and in Europe. So when they come here, they don't want to be preoccupied with troubles, but those are not the tourists we want. We want tourists who are willing to come to learn about the country and to enjoy the country, not just the beaches. You have to be a pathetic soul to leave your country and go to another country just to enjoy the beach. That's pathetic. That shows you how alienated and oppressed you are. Because I'm near Negril, and in the 3 years I've been in this area, I've only been to the beach once. It's only under pressure. Come on, it's like, look, I go on the beach and I say, okay, I'm not a ponder. Come on, somebody even want to roll the tourists them. Because they repulse me to go there and that. Somebody make a concession. Like, I have to make a concession. Yes. And I went there. But I'd rather go to the spring or to the river in a community and just go and take a bath. I just enjoy it. I just sit on the side of the spring. And enjoy everything. So we have to. So that is a problem in terms of the development.
How do we reclaim these spaces? Because I know Jabem is doing a wonderful job taking it through the courts. Kudos to the lawyer Marcus Gov. Kudos to the leadership Devon Taylor and the team of taking the next step, organizing, because this is what they have done, and have ensured paying their way through the courts to take the government, challenging the neo-colonial laws. But At the same time, even while this is ongoing, we are losing the spaces just the same. We're losing the land, we're losing the rivers, we're losing the oceans. So then how do we reclaim this? How do we begin to reclaim the land, reclaim the rivers? Mass resistance.
Because, I have a problem with legal strategies of resistance that's solely dependent on legal strategies. So in that way, we marginalize the people. The people are not actively out in the street making the country ungovernable. The only time, the most effective way to win concessions from the ruling class is when we have mass mobilizing and organizing of people and we're out in the street to make the place ungovernable. Then they make concessions. But as we go back home, we demobilize, then they start to claw back all the benefits. This is a proven strategy of the oppressors. The civil rights movement in the United States, the Black Power movement, it's not through courts that they won the advances, it's through the mass mobilizing and organizing of people that make
what do you think is missing? What do you think is missing? Because I know this is something, the mass resistance is something that we've been leading for a very long while. Jabem has also come in and is asking for this. So we're very happy to see this element, the court element, because it seems as if it's one or the other won't work. It needs both. But what I find is that there's apathy, that there is not enough interest among the people of Jamaica. So what do you think is responsible for the apathy, and how do we break through? It seems really difficult breaking through to Jamaican people en masse to say, well, even a critical mass, to say, right, listen, this is important, this is as an existential crisis. What is the reason for this apathy?
No, it's a number of issues going on. One of the things that we find across in North America, across the world, and we're talking about trying to organize the oppressed, communities with low levels of formal education have low levels of voluntary involvement. That's just how it is. And we can look in Jamaica. You look at Beverly Hills, they have their residents association, they're organized. Then you go into a working class community and we have no resident association to organize the collective voice of the people. Mm-hmm. But it's just what it is. Also, when we create working class children go off to the university, they don't go back into working class communities, and also there are problems with that, because I know some of my former students that you would say, yeah, we'd like to stay in the ghetto. Mm-hmm. But then you have people who want to tax us. That literally have to pay tax to the criminalized lumpen element because we have an income. And also sometimes there's a behavior within our communities, the contention, the conflict, people trying to, because for me, I make a choice as a revolutionary to live in working class community. But more time you have to pick up all your weapon and confront a woman beside
you know, somebody tell us I must stop selecting the on the radio.
And the people go on and with it, like say you know come from the ghetto, you have to say no.
It's so like when you're going to Cape.
But we don't want to live like that, because it means that you could get hurt or you could hurt the person. You have to defend my court.
This is like when I go KPH. But this is like when I go KPH. You have to go on bad and make everybody know. So listen, you have to go on bad. I understand the point. Blood, goodness gracious. I hope I dumped that. Okay, so I hope that was dumped. I did press the button. Brother Ajamo, listen now. I'm taking 15 minutes away from you only because there's this breaking news situation happening in Barbuda, and we've finally gotten to the sister. She's in England, and I want to join her online. So taking 15 minutes away from you, but I give you a minute to wrap.
Yes. We one of the things we have to do is create organizations where we are. We have to have place-based organizing. So you can't have an organization and people from all over Kingston come at a community center or one place and we meet. Where we live is where we must build organizations, and then we can create federations of organizations to do larger projects that extend beyond just one community. It's critical, and we need to we have to attend to the practical needs of the people. So if the issue is food security, we start to organize around that. If the issue is housing, we start to organize, but also keep people's attention on the larger factors behind the lack of access to housing, the lack of access to decent jobs. That is essential. It has to be practical. It can't just be we're meeting and we're just talking about ideas, but we also in a very Amilcar Cabral way, look at the material needs of the people as we organize them. Otherwise, we're going to lose the people. But we have to find a way to attract the petty bourgeois elements, the educated elements into the struggle. Progressive people realize that we have to commit ourselves to working class organizing in communities of the oppressed in order to move this thing forward. Because in a modern period, the radical petty bourgeois elements are critical to social revolution. They are usually the catalysts. They are in the leadership of social revolutions and national liberation struggles. So when we talk about the Morris Bishop or Bernard Core, or even Michael Mandela as a reformist petty bourgeois, they are critical in articulating the ideas. And so important that even in the Communist Manifesto by Frederick Engels and Karl Marx, they saw a section of the bourgeoisie, the capitalist class, coming over to the working class struggle to lead the communist revolution to do theoretical work among the oppressed. And we still need that type of skill from the radical petty bourgeois middle class elements.
Thank you, brother.
They are abandoned.
So, but we're going to pick up. I want to pick up back with you right where we're leaving here. It off here is, that idea of who needs to be part of this revolutionary process. And you talk about the abandonment. Thank you so much, my brother, as usual. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated. All right, Brother Ajamu, Dr. Ajamu Nangwa, to Sister Jacqueline Frank, who will give us some update on what's happening in Barbuda. We're just talking about land ownership, access to land here in Jamaica, and the extent to which we are deprived of access to land. One of the issues raised by our Brother Ajamu just now is to seize crown lands. I do agree with that. And another thing he said was the extent to which we need to change the way we engage with land in Jamaica in terms of making land communal as opposed to how we're dealing with it now. Sister Jackie can give us some update as to what's happening in Barbuda, because they have been through that and still facing some of the difficulties. Sister Jacqueline, the headlines in Barbuda yesterday, armed officers deployed at Cattle Hill land clearing site in Barbuda. The heavily armed law enforcement officers have been stationed around Cattle Hill, Louis Hill, where the government is clearing land for new development. The move has heightened tensions between the central government and the Barbuda Council over land rights and governance. I want you to help us to understand. I know you're an educator, you're an activist, you're a former head of the organization that led the protest against the disaster capitalism in Barbuda. Give us a historical context of why we are where we are now, with government literally hijacking the land away from the people of Barbuda.
Okay, thank you. Good day, everyone. My name's Jacqueline Frank, and I'm a born Barbudan, raised in the UK, and then I returned home once I'd retired. Now, this struggle with the government and the land system in Barbuda, I remember it from being a little girl, and I'm in my 60s, and my dad was one of the first early activists. There were others who were early activists, and this struggle has continued ever since the British decided that they were going to no longer be responsible for Barbuda, but force us to be annexed with Antigua. Now, at the time, the Barbudans, and even now, the Barbudans did not want to go into joint partnerships with the Antiguans. They protested it. They went to London and met with parliamentarians in London and said they did not want it. Mm-hmm. They did not sign the documentation. They fought against it completely. And in a big part, it's because of the land situation.
Yes.
In Barbuda, the lands are communal. So it's 62 square miles, and every Barbudan owns every piece of that 62 square miles. And some politicians in Antigua do not understand this. And the way that Barbudans lived in the past, the land provided everything for them. It provided shelter, They provided food, whether it was vegetation or meat or seafood. It provided water, even medicine. Mm-hmm. The land is a big, big part of Barbudans' lives. It always has been. And historically, the Barbudans were slaves on the island, owned by Sir Christopher Codrington. Now, Christopher Codrington had to pay a pittance for the island, but when he left the island and left the natives on there, left the Barbudans. Nobody looked for the Barbudans at all for the longest while. When emancipation came, Barbuda didn't know because nobody communicated with them. So they lived on the land. They lived with the land. Mm-hmm. And then eventually they were scooped up by the British, by the Antiguans, and they said, look, this is your responsibility. Mm-hmm. But up until when independence came now, in the early 80s, the Barbudans said to the British, like I said, that we do not want to go with the Antiguans. Mm-hmm. It was classed, and it is classed as an abusive relationship. If they were husband and wife, the woman would believe in getting a divorce because it is an abusive relationship. Mm-hmm. And more recently, what has happened is when we had the hurricane in 2017, as we were still confused. People did not want to leave. People were forced to leave under gunpoint, and they were told it was for their best interest to go and stay in Antigua. You can't live on Barbuda's uninhabitable. That wasn't true, but people were traumatized. Mm-hmm.
And Jamaicans will sorry to interrupt, but Jamaicans will remember that hurricane because we remember, we saw how devastating that was, where the entire island was literally underwater and there was so much destruction. And Jamaicans, there was no conscious understanding of what the process was like, apart from people were happy that, okay, so Antigua was going to intervene, Barbudans would be going to Antigua, but you're saying this is where the problems started.
That's true. That's where the problems started. Mm-hmm. People were under the impression they'd only be off the island for a week. We were literally kept off for a month. You could not go back to the island unless you had an armed escort. You could not go back to the island unless you were given permission, and you got 4 hours. You had to do what you had to do to your home and get back to the boat by 2:00 in the afternoon. Otherwise, the police would come for you with their guns. You were not allowed to stay on the island. We couldn't salvage anything. Lots of furniture, lots of clothes that could have been salvaged. We were not able to salvage them.
So traumatized many times over, first by the hurricane and then by this vicious system unleashed on the people by Antigua.
But the thing that we could not understand, we found out that the government had enabled and allowed developers to move heavy machinery and workers onto the island that we were told was uninhabitable. But they'd moved workers on to start work on building an international airport, an airport that is unnecessary in Barbuda. Mm-hmm. And it was all for developers. And what part of this issue is today with the standoff yesterday. Mm-hmm. Because on the island, there are several areas that have been given away by the government without the consent and or permission of Barbudans, because we're a society who are used to coming together in a village meeting to decide on projects. Mm-hmm. And then we give the feedback to the council, who then take it to the government, which is very, very democratic. Mm-hmm. But the government don't want to work like that. They want their way. And yesterday was the government flexing their muscles, saying, we're going to do this our way. Because there's meant to be a housing project built there.
Who are the developers?
With money.
Who's building there?
There are several developers. Mm-hmm. The first organisation is called Peace, Love and Happiness.
Oh, goodness.
And it's Peace, Love and Happiness. a gentleman billionaire called John Paul Giorgio from America is involved with that.
So this is
and
very
JP
Orwellian, isn't it? This is the Ministry of Love again from 1984.
Yes, and then there's another organisation called Discovery Land Company. And if you research Discovery Land Company, what is happening in Barbuda is happening all over the globe. They look for places that are small and possibly deemed in trouble and beautiful, and they try and take over. I don't know if you remember the Hawaiian fires that were, and people had to go in the sea to escape the fire. They've already been there and trying to take those people's land. They are all over the world. And what they want to do is build private enclaves with multi-million-pound houses inside and golf courses. That's all they want to do. And if they're able, they will privatize the beaches so locals cannot go on the beaches like some of the beaches in Jamaica. They are trying to do that too.
This is critical. So how laws had to be changed along the way, because obviously the land was communal, the land was owned by the people. So Antigua would have gone in and changed literally, whether by executive order, like we see in the U.S., but unilaterally change those laws to make this possible, what they're doing possible.
The government amended laws to make it possible for them to do what they can do. But we are challenging the group that I'm with, the Barbuda Land Rights and Resources Committee, with the help of lawyers, are challenging the things that they've done because we class them as unconstitutional, the way that they were done. So there are several cases in the courts regarding land for Barbuda, but that has not stopped. It hasn't stopped the government from pushing ahead and doing what they feel they want to do.
All right,
from making laws.
Sister Jackie, sorry to interrupt you. I had, I think it's a year and a half ago, or maybe a year, last year, I had a discussion with somebody who I know you work with about this very same issue, John Mussington, and they were laying out to me, and as a marine biologist, what's on the island, why it's important, apart from everything else that we're talking about, the denial of access, the theft of land, how the laws have been weaponized and amended and weaponized, but that there's also a marine interest in terms of the birds and the indigenous animals and the flora and fauna of Barbuda, that environmentally, not even that is being taken into consideration in this thrust for this capitalism 2.0 that's and disaster capitalism that's happening there on Barbuda. But I got the impression as I spoke with him then that there were gains being made and the fight was on. I know your name was mentioned in that interview, that the fight was literally on, and it looked as if people were optimistic to some extent. Are we hearing now that even more now than ever, the fight for land in Barbuda is the struggle is real?
Yeah, the struggle continues. I was talking with a reporter from the US and explaining our situation. And sometimes it feels like you're hanging on by your fingernails, despite all the legal assistance that we have. But what she reminded me of was that you've been doing this since 2017 and they haven't got the land yet. So you're doing something right.
Yes.
So keep doing what you're doing, which involves using the legal people who want to work with us and in keeping the people of Barbuda and those in the diaspora informed, and then learning how to fight this way. It's a different kind of fight. So you have to be smart. You have to be on the ball and have the information. You have to do a lot of research, and you have to make connections like connecting with you today, because somewhere along the line, people will support you, and you'll be able to take advantage of that support. So,
what do you want the people of Jamaica? What do you want the people of Jamaica who are listening in the diaspora, and we're broadcasting all over the world globally, actually, at the minute. What do you want people listening to know about the situation currently in Barbuda?
I want the people to know that Barbudans are fighting how they know how to fight. We're using the law, and we're using our presence, and we're using social media. So please keep your eyes and ears open for any reports that come out of Barbuda, because that will help to keep you informed. If you're willing to donate to the cost of our fights, there is a GoFundMe page. You'd have to go Google GoFundMe and Barbuda, and it's being led by Global Legal Action Network. They're our first legal support that we ever got that helped us to win the airport case. And I also want people to know that Mr. Mussington and I won our case at the Privy Council, and the government had told us to sit down and shut up because you don't have no say in Barbuda. The court said that we do have a say, and because the court said that we do have a say, it means the region has a say. Every island in the Caribbean who has signed up to the Escazú Agreement, you have a say. Legally, you're entitled to justice. Legally, you're entitled to information. Legally, you're entitled to have your voice heard whenever projects are coming to your land. If you're do not have the Escazú yet, push for it. Get the communities together and push for the Escazú Agreement. Nobody can come and take your land. Nobody can come and take your beach and tell you where to go and how to live your life. Fight, and fight hard.
And what is this agreement?
The Escazú Agreement is an agreement signed on by several of the islands of the Caribbean and other countries. And it states that anybody who lives in that particular country, island, has the right to information about what the government and powers that be are planning to do to their island, with particular reference to the environment, and you're entitled to a healthy environment, a clean environment. So if developments come along that endanger you or endanger the land that you live on, you're entitled to be consulted about it legally. You have the right to be consulted. You have the right to ask questions and expect answers, and you have the right to have your opinions listened to. It's supposed to help move governments and people closer together so that they can plan for the country, plan for the island in a more positive way, so everybody wins and not just the developer.
What support, assistance, if any, has come or is coming from CARICOM?
As yet, I'm not experienced any support or assistance from CARICOM directly.
That's a very diplomatic answer. You haven't experienced. To speak now with my beloved sister, Sister Yaya Marin Coleman, community organizer and grassroots journalist with Belize's only African radicalized as black media house in the region. She worked with Amandala newspaper for 55 years, Creme Radio 35 years, United Black Association for Development Educational Foundation, UEF, for 28 years, and 21 years at TV, radio and television personality, African-centered grassroots activist. Our sister is on the line from Belize. Sister Yaya, thank you so much for joining us on the Africa Forum this morning.
Greetings, Sister Kabu. Greetings, listeners. Big respect, lot of love from Belize. I don't work at a place so long. I was just sharing the backstory of the media house. But I've been there going on 19 years now.
Yes. Oh, 19 years. Okay, brilliant. Yeah. Once again, congratulations on the work that you're doing. We know of your work. We've heard of your work. And the grassroots activism is real. I want to talk to you this morning about the new information coming out of Belize, and that has to do with the banknotes and the fact that the monarchy is being removed from the banknotes. But that's interesting, Sister Yaya, because you would have thought that the monarchical representation on Belizean banknotes would have been of roundabout independence. What happened?
Sister, listen to me. The reception in Belize on that change has been mixed. Because they're not like this administration, which is the People's United Party. And it was under this administration that Belize gets so-called political independence. They never like that. They want for their mandate when they made a campaign. And this is something what Belizean people say, this is what we want. As usual, then do what they want to, and then that's just how it is. So, and then because one lot of Belizean people genuinely don't have the knowledge, because one of the hallmarks of colonialism, that a church-state school system. So you hear a number of people say that the money won't get the value because they change the face on the currency, which is not true, but that just because they're not having the knowledge. So there was no, as usual, when the state make their big decisions, there's no awareness campaign to make the people knowledgeable about whatever the issue is. If they're changing the face on the currency, it's about signing we for unborn children in debt for the blue bond, for the debt for nature swap. Whatever it is, and this is not unique to Belize. This is a part of neo-colonialism.
Yes.
So for a number of people, they may kind of off guard, like this don't happen already. I'm here one talking about it. And then my question is usually, you don't fail already for have one active, meaningful awareness campaign. What part people had input? Who said that who we want on the bills there? Like, then just to do what they want as usual.
So there was no consultation, and so there's a there's mixed reaction. And I heard you saying that there's also a concern that putting Belizean, and because who are they putting on the currency? Is it Belizeans now, national heroes, right?
They're two national heroes where they put on everything. And I'm not to say that the two people, they don't do a lot for the country. But again, you have to be careful about who to tell your stories.
Yes.
Because trust and believe, North Sister do a lot for this country. And this country never, for we historical story, never start in the 1950s with the People's United Party. So who decide? And this is the thing when we don't know for we own story, and the organization I represent, UEF, for we focus the African descendants racialized as Black people at home and in the diaspora for liberation. So what we do benefit Belizeans, but for we interest the Black people. So I just say, one time we don't know for we own stories, genuinely don't know a story, then people in power change the narrative to whatever they want. So so then time for look upon them brothers like from the 1950s. But Belize had a story before the 1950s. So that one real in 1780, there's documented evidence that when African descendants racialized as Black people bring here as chattel enslaved property. So who decide that? And that's one serious issue for me. Secondly, again, there's not a woman. The African worldview, there's usually a partner, a man and a woman. That's the African worldview. Not that. So we have an international airport, and I know named after brother Philip Gosen. We have what they call one highway that really a road. They call it the Philip Gosen Highway. They have another road they call the George Price Highway. They have one bus of each man at the entrance of each highway. Just I think it was last year, they put one big statue at George Price because he made a political leader when Belize come in at independence. So for about 23 years, from 1961 to 1984, and then from 1989 to 1993, 20 plus years, he made a head of state, not under the People's United Party government. And so my read, these are my 2 cents, that this administration really do everything enough for them power to really glorify George Price. And one of the things I have one issue with, and you know what do it says,
yes,
you know you go to somebody's funeral, you're hearing them talk about the person, and you will know the person, and you're the one that the same person they talk about. Because all of here are the good thing, and I just say, all of the dirty things, sister, even in a leadership. And when we just tell the truth about people's lives, that will inspire people, because you see yourself in a day. But when the singular narrative, like they don't do nothing wrong, and trust me, then do.
Because
I have
this is being
I have an issue with people not participating in processes where
that's it.
Lives.
Yeah, because this is what we didn't know. The information you're getting, and thank you for alerting me to this, is, okay, so you're focusing on, okay, so this is happening now, and you're looking more at independence, and you're saying, okay, national heroes. But the point you're making, there was no consultation. The people that they've put on the banknotes are people would have had other suggestions. And I also hear you saying that there was a need for a female. So they were just males. They're using just males.
Yes, the two males. Mm-hmm. The two males are George Price, who, like I said earlier, that made the head of government for a period of time under the People's United Party, and the other person would be brother Philip Stanley Wilberforce Golson. He's a newspaper editor, activist, and politician. Now, when you look on the two men, brother Golson identifiable as one black man. Mm-hmm. When you look on George Price, you can't tell because he's a mixture of African descendant and indigenous, what they call mestizo. So, one of my first thing, and somebody will know me say, I know you may. I said that, yeah. George Price would be on the $20, $100, and $5 note. Philip Golson upon the $50, $10, and $2 note. So I said, so why the black man upon the note will have less value?
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing I say.
No, but it's the same thing going on Jamaica here. We have the very same conversation about, how Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey was treated in terms of the change in the banknotes recently. So we have this conversation here, and you hear a whole lot of stories about why and so on. But our struggles are the same wherever we are in the region, and this is critical. What happens now then? Because is this a done deal? Do people have a right to reject this, to protest this, and is it all in the bag?
It sounds like that one done deal, sister, because they said the rollout will happen in June, and just had the launch on Thursday, January 23rd. I think number 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. They had the rollout. It was this past Thursday, January 23rd. They had the launching. And then in June, it going in a circulation. What they say, how they go, that they launched, they said I told them it did consult, but I don't know no Belizean what they consult. I never hear nobody talk about it. I don't know about it. And then this is the thing we could gall me, sister. Mm-hmm. They like to about the word decolonization. Just lyrics, Just lyrics. Because how you want to have the same monarch representative, the governor general, is the head of state. Mm-hmm. The prime minister are the head of government. And just to show how colonial they are, the organization I represent have an ongoing hair policy campaign for the Ministry of Education, change the hair policy for being more fair and representative of the people who live in the country. Mm-hmm. So one of the things, and today is the 145 of the Colin campaign and Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes talk show. Make a plug. You could go to XTV Belize YouTube, XTV Belize Facebook for programming. Mm-hmm. But we show that over a 9-year period, right? You had 11 reported Belizean stories of hair discrimination in 6 districts, and Belize got 6 districts, 3 villages, 4 towns, and 1 city. That means when youth students go to school and they not follow the colonial rule, but how you have to wear your hair, 1, you have to wear it how they say. 2, you get denied education, which is a human rights violation. Angola changed their hair policy in 2022. Trinidad and Tobago changed their hair policy in 2023. Puerto Rico even gone further. They not only changed their hair policy for school, but then change it in a public service, employment, education, and housing. Mm-hmm. So you have so this is why they say they like to about the word decolonization, but in areas where it really have one significant difference in people's lives. They're just lyrics. And I fool it up, but I don't fool the listener.
And look here, we literally can identify with everything you said. I expected you to say Jamaica tried to change theirs last year and it still don't change. This is basically where we are. They hear policy. They're still sending children home, especially those with African textured hair. They're still discriminating against Rastafari in our schools, young people with locks. So it is what it is, our struggle. And I was just speaking to Sister Jackie Jackie, Frank, as you know, our struggle is one. So basically, we have work to do, sis. We have work to do from the grassroots up. We have work to do as a Caribbean people. The CARICOM is out of this. The leaders are out of this. The politicians are out of it. They all belong to the synagogue of Satan. We have to do this with self. This is where we are. We are on our own.
The way they are gases. Listen to me. But this is a good thing, right?
Yes.
People would have said to me, because I'm known for protests, and they'd say, why the Ocha by yourself? I tell them, African ancestresses and ancestors, the Ocha with me. One of my can't sit in, but then the Ocha. And I tell them this will give me hope. If me up to the system and all my kinfolk, all my kinfolk, for the one that was sell way out and keep the sell way out, if me up to their system, we know me and they are. But the fact that African descendants racialized as black people still there on earth, that the majority people, that's a win. And when we in a communication with one another, like this is what happened right now, and UF is active in this process that right now we got to link that Trinidad, we got to link that Guyana, we got to link that Jamaica, we got to link that Belize. And remember, all my kinfolk and my kinfolk, I prefer work with people who got on record of being credible and genuinely work for meaningful change for people of African descent in particular. And so that's why I adamant when I don't usually give interviews, but especially when I talk in a Creole intentionally. You know why? My audience, that the people in the Caribbean. Oh, that's how we talk out the road. We not talk the oppressor language out the road. No enough we life or we grow up as everyday people.
Yes, it is true.
So who I want to hear the message, they could understand me and I could understand them.
Tell us, and we love it. We love it. Tell us, and we can understand you right here, in Jamaica. Tell us where we can find you. Thank you for coming on. We're totally out of time. How can we listen to your program? Where we can find you?
Yes, Christian. Thanks. On Sunday mornings, which is Central Standard Time, from 10:30 to noon, I produce and host the only news review talk show in Belize. So you could go to YouTube, and it's XTV Belize. You could go to Facebook, XTV Belize, and you could download either one of them two apps. And make up put the number out there, because like one of my sisters say, I'm more command than Patlika. My number is 501-671-8050. If I could help you, I want to help you. But I ask for the same thing for you. Come with clean heart, clean hand. Only the people want to save the people.
Give thanks, my sister. Well said. Really appreciate of you coming on every time. We're going to keep this up because this is the kind of connection that we're making in the Caribbean. And we know the struggle continues, but once we're united, we can overcome. Thank you so much.
Solidarity forever.
Sister. There you go. Thank you so much, Sister Yaya. Every time. All right. 3 minutes now. 2 minutes going up to 10 o'clock, and the big A's in the house. Lots happening because we're heading now into Black History Month and Reggae Month. It was always going to be a clash, and here we are. I know, Big A, it's easy to say, where you're there. It's easy to say reggae is Black history. I move with it, but no. Reggae is Black history, but goodness gracious, there has to be something else. Meaning what? Meaning that the focus, especially for Jamaica, can't just be one element of Black history, which obviously reggae is, and we've had this conversation before, distinctly Jamaican. So yes, we understand that. The focus on that would be right. We have no problem with the focus on that. But what about the rest of it? Because history is what it is. History is what it is. If you're going to focus on reggae, then what about the rest of the culture? And not just music culture. There is food culture. There is heritage. There's just so much more. You can't, we were concerned. I know, listen, let me just put things in context, because you were there. You, along with Joy Morgan, and who else was there? When we took this concept, and Rita Marley, first to Nana Rita Marley, do you remember? And And then she and then she carried us to Babsy, to the minister. It was Rita Marley who took us to Babsy, you know. Because we said this to her. We were celebrating Bob on IRFM. We were celebrating Dennis Brown. We were celebrating Third World. We were celebrating, we were doing, there was so much that was happening that we thought we needed a more formalized reggae month. And we went to Rita Marley with it first. And she took us to Babsy Grange. And when we went to Babsy Grange, she said to us, I appreciate this and I welcome it. And I have been having a similar discussion with Lloyd Stanbury. Do you remember? And this is why we have this overlap. So it was always our idea. And you were the one who broadcast live from Jamaica House, right? When it was being launched. I mean, just I put it in context to say, are we do it? And we were certain, it was my thing to stand in the gap to say, we can walk on true gum. We were certain that we can balance it. There were people who were saying that we can't balance it. Did those people win? In terms of the
because we did our part, right? And we embraced it. The one aspect of it, as you mentioned, Black history is more than just the music, and we embraced the music part. So those who are stakeholders who should take up the responsibility for the other parts. We certainly can't get rid of it.
But we did say we were going to do it. We did say we were going to do it. It was my job. You were reggae and me did black. Me was Black history.
Oh well.
But I'm not taking. I'm not going.
Well, fine.
Right, and people. And this is why I know that when Sister P called me and said, say after a few years, this thing is going to be on the reggae though. But Sister P, as somebody who, I'm a sister and I'm a mother, so she did see it. She saw that, and I remember me and Muta have a conversation. Was Muta? No, Muta wasn't there. But I remember me and Muta had a conversation too, because there was always a concern that Black history was going to be overshadowed by the big bad reggae. It didn't have to be though, but it is. This is the point I'm making.
Right, and where do you think we need to start to put the balance in it, though?
Well, I don't know. I see Lloyd Stanbury. I go up on Lloyd Stanbury Facebook page. Because I see him write something. I think Lloyd Stanbury is pretty well aware of what is happening, and that is why he probably wrote what he wrote. Was it this morning or yesterday? On his page. Let me see if I can find it. He says, 23 hours ago, Marcus, Malcolm, Mandela, Martin Marley. Black History Month is Reggae Month. So I see what is happening to Lloyd, which is the same thing that's probably happening to us. Answer your phone, because I can better somebody tell you how to fix it. How do we fix it?
Well, Nicholas Evans has the answer to all things. So you're probably right.
So is him that calling him? Well, Nick probably have a way to fix it. So put him on the line there, let me hear him myself. Nick, so big iPhone is defective. Why you never call my phone? Even though mine have a red line running down the middle. No, but on a serious note, let me tell you how we can fix this big A. We have to do it. It is still IRFM. We felt at the time. Oh, was Nick there? Nick was also there, wasn't it? Nick was there.
I am not sure. I don't remember. I
think Nick was there when we went to Rita Marley and then went to and Nana Rita carried us to Babsy. We want to set this record straight, immediately set this record straight also, because there are many people who are claiming that this idea for Reggae Month is theirs. But really and truly, we just tell you how it go. And the only person we can share that with is Lloyd Stanbury. And Lloyd Stanbury himself is a product of IRFM. Hello, Lloyd.
We could just call it how we call it.
It's the business of things. Yeah. So are we begin?
No doubt about that, though.
Well, Nick, I'm gonna put you up on the speaker. So Nick, you're on mic. You're on mic. So that now.
Courtney Wallace is the one who was
there. It's Courtney Wallace was there. Courtney Wallace.
Right.
Yes, it was Courtney Wallace. So Nick, how we fix this thing?
Courtney Wallace.
How we fix this thing? When there?
Yeah, I'm saying, I hear you struggling to say who was the other person that it was Courtney Wallace.
Yes, it is Courtney Wallace, because I was just saying that it was you. So, but me still ask you how we fix this, so call it through the operator. But we can still hear you. So
it is what it is. I mean, Irie yourself has been written out of civil, and you will be written out of Great House, Reggae Month the same way. It is what it is.
Really, you can't answer.
Once politics gets in, I mean, I am around Reggae Month every month. I mean, as a sponsor, not as something, not as one of the founding members. I mean, I mean, as in Irie FM. I mean, I'm the leader.
As a sales manager, yes.
Yeah. So and you know, there's nowhere in the history Irie played any part, and it really hurt because I was there. I was there when Big A broadcast from the Bob Marley Museum, his show, your show, then Big A show, and I mean, it was a grand celebration. All the ministers, all of these people.
It was a partnership with Nana Rita Marley and the Bob Marley Museum and Tough Gang, and then later on, the same day.
Everybody who is anything in culture was there.
Yes, when Nana Rita Marley left our studio, left our office, remember the day they know? And carried to Babsy, you know.
Yeah,
it was to say, I endorse this. And, Barbara Blake Hanna was in the meeting.
She was the name I'm struggling to
remember.
Yes,
she was in the meeting. And the only person, as I said, that will share this accolade with, because it's an accolade, is Lloyd Stanbury, because I remember Babsy saying to us that this is a brilliant idea, and she was having a similar conversation with Lloyd Stanbury. I remember that. So anyway, you're right, Nick, that we're being written out of a lot of things. IRFM has to take a stand, even if we're sitting down, because them write us out of civil, same way now. We start civil, you know.
Of course.
Are we starting Jubilee civil?
Yeah, of course.
We are written out of that, you know.
Properly. Remember, I used to broadcast from there as well.
I know.
We used to make that sojourn every August month.
I went to launch at civil and listen all the accolades in England. I was never mentioned once. Neither yourself. I mean, everybody, Sister Minnie, Sister P, everybody was mentioned except.
Well, at least they mentioned Sister Minnie and Sister P, so good, good. But that IRFM led the process.
Yeah.
You know,
as these entities partner with other entities, other media houses, it becomes what you say now. Searching for the word, it's not cool to mention IRFM because they have other big partners, and I mean, so it's not cool to mention. Remember, Kabu, when we did Money Wheel celebration, 4 minutes of TVJ carried our team. 4 minutes, and not once IRFM was mentioned. It was as if it was a government celebration.
You know what? TVJ covered it, but TVJ we used to cover everything we do. You know.
The more partnership, the more media partnership that happens, the more we are written out of things that we.
Yeah, that is true. But why is IRFM still sponsoring these things? Because anyway.
Because it's about the people. It's not really about us. It's about the people. We do this to preserve the earth. You know, I spoke with a doctor once who was inventing something, and I said to him, "And when you're done with this, I mean, some rich man are going to take it and run off with you, and get nothing." And him say, that's not the thing, I'm inventing this to help people. So if a rich man can take care and serve the world with it, I mean, that's cool,
Yes, but he must still be credited as the founder of it. Nick, I want to make an appeal. I asked Babsy when I was interviewing her with Muta at Civil the last time, which was, why have you written IRFM, Carl Young, ourselves out of all of this history? Chief Tetchy, for example. The name Chief Tetchy is it come from my head, my brain. I called Professor Vereen Shepherd and had that discussion with her, and the two we started work on it and do the research, and they finally changed the name and did not invite us to the interview.
Everything that the government does, regardless of which government is in power, they want TV, they want newspaper, they want everything. And I mean, let's face it.
Nick, you're still up on the radio, so you can't stay there.
Other media houses are not cool in saying they are a big part of a project that was started by IRFM.
No, they want to write a sort of history. We're going to have to go.
Experience, we are written out.
I want to pitch something to you and the managing director, Mrs. Debbie Anduor. We must go in search of IRFM because that's what we don't know. Yeah, in search of IRFM. Simple.
True.
Yes, Nick, we're gone because you see when I'm going to say we're gone 10 minutes over time.
All right.
So big game. Me see the man where you said you're gonna win a change laws left, right, and center.
Right.
Did you predict that also?
No. Well, listen. he attempts to do all the things that he promises to do. So we have to take that with a grain of salt. That if him say we're going to do it, good or bad, be on the lookout.
Okay. Well, we're looking. This is how we say goodbye. Anything else?
You heard the AI song which incorporated the voice of Mr. Trump?
No.
I'll play it for you off here. Not certainly don't fit your Sunday morning program, but it is a very playable song. I played it last night.
Oh, but why can't I fit my program? A dance hall?
Yes, it's hard, very hard.
Let me not play a protege?
A little harder than that.
Okay. It's popcorn? A cartel?
Something up this.
Oh, no, all right. That's up for Whistle. DJ Whistle, are your thing? Anyway, I must say good morning to DJ Whistle because they're touring on the same team now, Ferrari.
Oh, okay.
We finally landed at Ferrari. So, I didn't get to say a lot about it, but Whistle, I know we're good. We're on the same team. Tifosi to the world. Lewis Hamilton. Big A. What's your favorite driver? Schumacher?
For me? I don't have... my favorite driver? Eddie the taximan from...
Driver, don't stop at me to get somebody about that. Driver, don't stop at all. This is
my favorite driver. Right
Eddie. Up to me know Eddie, you know.
You must know Eddie.
Eddie the taxi. Yeah, I know Eddie, man. Eddie, you're my favorite driver too. Second to Lewis Hamilton. This is how we say goodbye. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for participating. We're leaving you now with a big A inside of a Sunday sunshine.
It's caught in the crossfire.